I prefer the Denver airport because I've watched like some 20-minute YouTube videos about that. It is fascinating. And every time I've ever been in the Denver airport, I tried to be observant and see some of the things I had learned in the videos. And I'm sure you're going to cover this, but it's way overbuilt. I find that one very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Did you have a vote on that one?
I've never heard either of these. So I've never heard either of these as conspiracy theories. So no, either would be great.
Okay. So I'll do the Denver airport one then. So I know Kyle has, because you picked me up there once. Have you flown through the Denver airport, Filthy?
I don't remember. Probably. It's Denver, Colorado. Yeah. Okay.
So the Denver airport was made in 1995, and Denver already had a functional airport. It worked just fine, but they spent billions and I'm doing the Denver airport conspiracy now, Woody.
Thank you.
So the airport itself is insanely big. It is 33,531 acres, 52.4 square miles, and its longest runway is 16,000 feet. It puts other airports to fucking shame with how big it is and how much space it takes up. Before it was constructed, there were a lot of fully finished buildings, 5 of them, that they had on that area. And they buried them all underground, and they just left them there. They left them all under there. They said that they weren't built correctly, and so they put them underneath the structure, is what their explanation was. And these were 5 fully formed, like a network that was underneath where the airport is. Keep in mind, this is an enormous airport. It's literally the biggest space under an airport in the country by a lot. This is one thing that, I'm just setting the stage for what made people kind of conspicuous of this whole thing. Something that this was featured on 2010's version of Jesse Ventura's hit show Cօnspіracy, and he confirms everything I'm about to say. And the Freemason thing. Do you guys know what Freemasons are?
Yes.
I could use an explanation.
It's basically like an elite group that a lot of people contend, kind of like the Illuminati, where they have. Yeah, it's kind of lumped into that same mythology or assertion.
Many of our founding fathers were Freemasons.
People, founding fathers, they have a disproportionate amount of power. They can exert their influence, not necessarily directly. They're like a deep state, quote unquote, where they can manipulate powers that be in order to get their way, but they are staying in the shadows, is what people would assume. And so the Freemasonry has a huge part at that airport. The capstone of the airport has the compass and sextant, or whatever the fuck that thing is, compass and something else. Sorry. Did I write it down? I did not. Well, it's got the Freemason insignia on the capstone there. And it was sealed. The capstone was sealed on March 19th, 1994, before it was opened. And on it, it says, "To the people of Colorado in 2094. Oh, a square and compass Freemason symbol. That's what it was. And underneath that are 2 Grand Masters listed of the Freemasons. It also says a list, and it has New World Airport Commission. And people don't know what that is, but it has the Freemason symbol. It's the capstone of the building. It's got 2 of the Grand Masters listed, and it's got New World Airport Commission. If you don't know, New World Order is the thing that they always say those people are building. They're building a New World Order where they're going to sit behind the shadows and conduct us like puppets. That kind of turned people off. The next thing were the statues. So if you've ever been inside the Denver airport, you'll know that the aesthetics of it are fucking weird.
Yep.
This is something that I noticed before I knew this was a conspiracy, where I'm like, I've never been in an airport getting my bags where there are gargoyles staring down at me all over the place. It's a fucking strange aesthetic there. And so there are gargoyles all over the place in the airport, which is a Masonic symbol, I guess. They have a 30-foot horse out front that's blue, has glowing red eyes, and they call it Blucifer, because they think it's a demon horse. They use that, I saw it. The Freemasons do the whole 4 horsemen of the apocalypse thing. And so they're like a poem or some shit under there. They think that was a hint at that. People say it's cursed. And there have been reports of people having panic attacks and like passing out nearby the horse. And the horse itself was commissioned by an artist. Filthy, I'm presenting this.
How dare
as
you
though
snicker?
This is serious shit, man.
I'll zip it up.
Do you think I would joke about a magic horse out front of the Denver airport? If you do, you don't even know me. but shut up. So this 32-foot horse, as it was being commissioned and sculpted, it actually killed its creator. The head slipped off, gashed open his femoral artery, and he bled out all over the head of this horse that is now sitting out front of the Denver International
Or
Airport.
was he sacrificed?
You're reading my mind. There's also the problem of the murals in. So a lot of airports will have that aesthetic, hey, come look at Atlanta. We've got cool, neat stuff and like pictures of that. This is just a big mural, multiple murals telling like a story, and the story is not very normal for what you would consider in an airport where you normally see like birds or like, a nature scene. It's showing like predictions where, you got, they say it's about the Germans taking over again. Because the first one is a guy who looks very Nazi-esque in a gas mask, and there are people, struggling and everything. And he's clearly being, assertive. He's going to take shit down. There's another one where there is a Boy Scout who is clearly representing the U.S., handing his weapon to a Bavarian child, clearly symbolizing Germany. Not a peace agreement, but handing the weapon to the German. People do not like that. There's another one of a devil jumping out of a suitcase. There's one. It's either a statue or no, it's a mural. There's a mural of Anubis, the Egyptian god of death. There's one of children gathered around a knife. There's kids in front of a burning building. Those were all. And then America submitting to Germany by giving weapons to the Bavarian kid. And another thing they mention, flipping my page there, is that the runways look like a swastika if you zoom out and look at it. You got a nice looking swastika shape there. And at first I thought, well, of course there wouldn't be curbs in a runway. You're setting planes off. And I thought, no. That makes too much sense. And so they're all straight. They look like swastikas. The other thing I mentioned early on, if you recall, are the underground bunkers that people assert are under this thing. And it's not even an assertion. It's known that there are bunkers under there. When there was like some missile threat from North Korea during Obama's administration, he was mysteriously flown to Denver. Oddly enough, that it's odd that he would go to Denver. People speculate or postulate that this might be a place to house undesirables in some sort of apocalyptic scenario where no one would know. Or they say that part of it might be to keep the elites safe in the event that something were to happen that was calamitous.
Full spectrum, really, for these.
Full spectrum. They're multi-purpose rooms down there.
Yep.
The 5 buildings were completed and buried intact. Totally functional down there. There's also the 2007 incident that people believe that there is something electromagnetic happening underneath that building in one of those finished buildings, because 14 windshields on planes spontaneously broke on the same date at the same time in 2007, and it set the whole airport back, and there was no explanation for it given. There's also the 2012 Aztec apocalyptic insignia above a couple of the murals. On one of the little statues they have there, they have AU, AG on it, which are chemical symbols, and they believe that could be kind of a hint. It's gold and silver, but they say that it could be a hint towards Australia antigen toxin, which is a weapon of choice for the Illuminati. So it could be a hint. Yes, you act like I went to one site and read all this. and then the Queen of England is also buying up properties surrounding this very airport. So I put you this, gentlemen. Is it more likely that an architect or a team of architects made a building too big and an artist with a bad sense of style was conscripted to decorate it? Or is it more likely that covert Germans working out of Argentina built the Denver airport to make sure that there would be a place to hide when it all goes tits up?
Option number 2, I guess.
I'm stunned. Compared to these other presentations, I mean, I thought a lot of these other presentations. I thought they were very well done, but this one I think takes the cake for me. There's almost no way to refute this. Like nothing is even able to be challenged. It's so clearly laid out step by step.
Taylor, you don't know this, but while you were talking, I put on the big screen all the different murals that you were describing. Yeah, they're seriously fucked.
They're not good murals for an airport. That much is fair.
I'm like,
but
like there are gargoyles looking at you.
Major airport, right? Like I've been to JFK and LaGuardia. I've been to LAX. I've been to Vegas and Denver and Atlanta.
No Nazis.
They often have motifs, right? You know, if you're in like the Southwest, they often have a lot of Native American stuff and fucking Adobe looking shit. And you know, you go up north and there's all kinds of like aviation stuff. That's bizarre. No other airport has that. Like here in Atlanta, we've got, weird. You know, sometimes it's a bit like, it's like a local museum, a little bit of local history and flavor. Sometimes it's aeronautic history specifically, you know, that makes sense.
And I could just, well, I mean, the Illuminati or the Freemasons, whoever it is who are behind this, I mean, clearly had the same thought. They wanted a little bit of their local culture portrayed in the airport. I mean, that was what they weren't willing to compromise on. Sure, I mean, the shadow government, the hidden secret, like puppet strings they're pulling, but not here, not giving up the tradition of the airport reflecting the local culture. That was not something they were willing to hide, not something that's an American value so deep that they weren't willing to compromise.
Deep. There'd be a bunch of John Denver shit in there or something, right? Like what the fuck is that? This one that I linked
I don't think John Denver's from Denver.
No, but he sings the song. That's all I care about. Oh. This the one that I linked here, which ignore the InfoWars banner in the bottom left. That's clearly like an evil stormtrooper with a machine gun and a sword stabbing a white dove.
The symbol of peace.
And
killing
in the
a symbol of peace.
In the background, there are perpetual women holding dead babies and rubble.
Yeah.
It's like the god of death or the god of war is what it looks like, perpetuated.
That guy looks like a Nazi to me. Like
a bit. Yeah. A soldier for sure. Like he's war, if anything.
Yeah.
That's
Kyle, do you know that gun? Is that a gun that you can identify?
It's made to look like an AK-47.
Okay.
Yeah, it was I've never given it any thought. And I looked into it, and it was very weird. But it's just, I mean, first of all, this is stone cold retarded. If you actually, you got to be stone cold retarded to believe in a conspiracy like this. But also, and guess what? Like when I was reading about it, all it took was like 5 seconds to undo everything that I just claimed. I just didn't want to start with any of that. It was like, well, they were trying a new baggage system to expedite people's travel, and it didn't end up working. So now it's abandoned, and they have a traditional baggage system. It's like, oh no, I don't think so, lady. I think that there are electromagnetic pulses, you know. And then those 14 aircraft, they were inspected by engineers or whoever, you know. Aeronautical engineers, whoever would do it, I don't know. And they were like, yeah, this is clearly caused by, you know, rubble or something smashing into it. You know, there were very high winds on that day.
Show me the pig man.
What's undeniable, though, is someone has a bad sense of art.
Yeah, all this, like the gargoyles, the murals, that big scary blue horse with the fiery eyes. These are arguably the worst aesthetic choices for an airport. Like, are you trying to put people on edge?
But I think like that brings tourism, right? Like, doesn't this type of shit, like, is this something that people are going to come and view? Like, this is hype for this.
It's why are we discussing this? Who goes to an airport for tourism?
Yeah.
Agreed. But here we are.
I'm going to Denver. Where are you staying? Nah.
Not this guy.
Nah. I'm going to take a quick peek, couple of pics with me and the Nazi, and then I'm back home.
Staying.
Next week, I'm visiting LaGuardia.
I've flown through this airport, but only as a kid. I don't remember any of this. But now I want to go back.
I'm going to buy a $9 beer in every airport across the country.
I looked at the swastika and showed it to everyone, too. I went to Google Maps and showed them that. And it does kind of look like a swastika. I see it. But as someone like who, whatever, the little flying I do, you want to take off and land into the wind. And that's why they have like crosses, kind of, you know, so that regardless of the wind direction, you can probably go pretty much into it.
Yeah, the swastika thing was the silliest part, arguably, because it was like, what would you think a runway would look like? Like a bunch of straight lines going outward like the sun, like a curve here or there? Like, no, it's gonna be
asterisk.
If there is a shape that shows up at an airport, arguably the swastika is the most logical one. Right? Nobody's making like a yin yang peace sign airport. Yeah.
It's just hilarious to me that like part of this is, so presumably this is, they're so either secure in this or so necessary that the conspirators are flagging this.
They put the whole point on our money, man. That's how they work.
Right? Like the idea of like keeping something secret, but you're being as blatant as you can is such a bizarre juxtaposition of like how you think about that. Like, you're trying to hide something? Well, I'm going to put symbols that reveal this all over the fucking place. It seems really, I don't know. So it's funny that you fix on. Yeah.
It seems like you'd be like teasing it, you know, like you would have to be the most ballsy motherfucker to be like, yeah, we're building it. We're building it in Denver where they already have an airport that's fine. And guess what? It's going to be the biggest one out there. And guess what? We're putting fucked up murals and gargoyles in it. Why? Because they'll never suspect a creepy airport of actually being creepy.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
that was an interesting one. Like a lot, like clearly it's retarded, but it's interesting the stuff people read into this and the fervor that some people will express on something as minute as whether or not the Denver airport has buildings underneath it. Like who could possibly, well, I ask who could possibly care? We're talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That horse does not make me want to fly.
That horse is amazing.
It's cool outside of like a rock climbing or a paintball course, but it shouldn't be at the airport.
It should
like,
be
Daddy,
inside
this is my first flight. What's that?
It belongs in a laser tag arena.
Yeah, it really, that's the kind of thing. Or on like Double Dare 2000, something like that is where that belongs.
Do they like dress up like any of the flights that fly out of there? Like sometimes like, you know, the stewardesses or whatever, and they're like running around in like the fucking horse costume. Like that's like they do it all like, kids, you need to buckle your seatbelts or the horse from hell takes you down. You know, like I want to see like, I would love to see like, they should have art from that, and probably local artists will probably be inspired by this, of like the horse pulling down planes or something. Like just like, this is such a great, I just love that image. Like that image is incredible.
It is a very cool, aesthetically pleasing statue in the context of the statue itself, not of like outside an airport.
Yeah, it's both totally bizarre. Like this is clearly what some of the hype of this is about, is how bizarre this is to have at this type of thing. Like airports airports are dull and uneventful and safe and comforting. Why is there a fucking glowing red devil horse in front of this one?
Why is there a picture of kids holding weapons, standing by a burning building, holding a knife or whatever? Like that, I don't know. That doesn't seem to go very well with Wetzel's pretzels.
Right.
I was curious. You said it was the biggest airport. It is by land. That's the measure.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy part, is that they bought way more land than was needed for it.
Yeah, it's the 6th busiest by people.
Yeah, like Atlanta's the busiest, I think. I think Atlanta's number 1, but it's not nearly as big as Denver as far as area.
Yeah, you're right about Atlanta being the busiest in terms of people. My site doesn't have land on it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to need a source on that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Tell us if you guys want this conspiracy shit to be a recurring bit, because I think it's entertaining and engaging and interesting to hear the things people believe, especially the sillier ones like this.
So the two that I prepared are Albert Einstein, fraudulent plagiarist, and Helen Keller, secret retard.
You're off to a good start. I'm sorry.
These Hallmark movie titles are just getting out of hand.
Like a sci-fi movie.
Helen Keller, secret retard.
So either of those, which one do you guys
Helen
want?
Keller. I want Helen Keller. That's the one's going to piss me off.
Helen Keller. Okay. All right. So I will make the case that at absolute best, and this is at absolute best, Helen Keller was able to say and comprehend a few words and short phrases. All the advanced speech she gave was trained and rehearsed for her by her trainer and teacher, Anne Sullivan, almost like a parrot more than a person.
Wow.
And so I will say this. She went blind and deaf at 19 months old. Do you know what the prognosis is for children who go blind and deaf at 19 months old in the year 2020 as opposed to 125 years ago? It's that they will never be able to function in society. They will never be able to communicate. They will not be able to engage in normal behavior. There is no hope. You just have to mitigate it. I looked up a lot of reviews of people who talk about this kind of thing, who work with blind, deaf people. And what they say is that you're way more likely to have to engage with them lashing out violently at you because of confusion. And, it's sad. They're totally distanced from reality. And so they obviously lash out. You're way more likely to engage in that kind of behavior from these patients than you are them trying to read, because they can't read. There's a fundamental level of perception that you need in order to engage with anyone on any meaningful level. And that includes both audio and visual. You don't need both.
I never thought of this.
There are deaf people who can communicate and there are blind people who can communicate, but that's only because blind people take advantage of audio. Deaf people take advantage of visual. That's the only reason that it's able to be done. Is it a coincidence that in all of human history, there have been blind, deaf people? Not once in human history, other than Helen Keller, have they been able to engage with someone like this and speak in this way. And you may say to me, "Oh, there was someone 50 years prior to Helen Keller that was also a taught blind, deaf person." That person is even less credible than Helen Keller. they literally are. I went on a deep fucking dive with it. And so,
I can't believe you're shitting on him. This is awesome.
So I'm saying it's simple. It is far more likely that she is a hoax than it is likely that of all blind deaf people throughout human history, she is the only one that was capable of speech. And not only speech, because remember this is not purported that she was able to recognize water. It was purported that she was a very political person with a lot of astute observations about the goings on in society. And what you don't know is that Anne Sullivan, her teacher, isn't it remarkable that all of Helen Keller's political beliefs align exactly with those of Anne Sullivan, her teacher? That's weird. It's weird that she finds this one woman, teaches her how to say a couple words. There are literally political speeches of Helen Keller that you can find where the actual speech is Anne Sullivan standing there talking with Helen Keller's hand moving in her hand.
Oh,
and
it's just like Joe Biden.
It's almost like Joe Biden. I will say this. There was an established way that Anne Sullivan said that Helen Keller communicated, and that was to make single measures, single positions in the hand of Anne Sullivan that meant different letters. Yet in all of these speeches, Helen Keller is furiously signing, not that furious because she's retarded, and what it turns out is that Anne Sullivan is speaking at a normal pace, a normal everything, giving normal speeches about politics, her beliefs, everything. Hey, try and speak one sentence to me, Kyle, where instead of saying the words out to me, you spell them out. And not even with your hand, spell them out with your mouth. How long does it take? Say, "Hello, my name is Kyle," with just the letters.
F-U-C-K space Y-O-U.
All right.
Oh my
God. How much
God.
longer than saying,
He's making great
How dare you
points here.
disparage the miracle worker?
No,
Are you fucking kidding me? Helen Keller was a scam?
That's Patty Duke,
Helen
motherfucker.
Unbelievable.
Do you think there's one blind deaf person that's ever achieved this? And not only that, she mimics the exact political views of her teacher, which are very, extremist views in a lot of situations, especially for the time. You think that's a coincidence? You think that's real? You think that now? So in the last 120 years, no other deafblind people have been able to be reached this way. No other ones. All the advancements in science, all the advancements in everything, none of them are reached. That's fucking crazy. Isn't that weird?
Where's Anne Sullivan?
Anne Sullivan's dead.
You got to dig her ass up. Get to the bottom of this.
Dig her hands out. What a great point. So Anne Sullivan used to talk at these things. She would be the voice of Helen Keller, allegedly, and Helen was supposed to be talking to her, and she would talk in a normal cadence.
Yes, and she would speak.
So that's impossible from what you just demonstrated, because she's getting one letter at a time. That would be a long, drawn-out speech.
Yes.
What's hilarious? Is it possible to have shorthand like a court reporter?
She can't even see or hear. You think she's doing
I love this. I love this.
And so I
Fuck
maintain
Helen Keller.
I
Fuck her in
maintain
the ass.
Yeah.
My question, Taylor,
this bitch has been retarded from the start, and we've all been bamboozled.
is
We've all
Helen
been
Keller even in on the ruse, or is she just playing
Oh.
palm tickle games the whole time,
Oh,
unaware
yeah,
that there's a
probably.
speech happening?
will-
Of course, she's not in on the roof. She's retarded.
If she's retarded,
Maybe she's the mastermind.
Also, here's another thing. The big thing from the miracle worker was the scene where Helen Keller in her retard voice is like, what? And like
Right,
saying
well.
water on there. There's no way to falsify that claim. She doesn't know if water means water. She doesn't know if water means wet. She doesn't know if water means cold. She doesn't know if it means the sensation of water rolling over her fingers. There's no way to falsify what she could possibly mean by expressing that term. And so for that reason, I say it is absolutely 100% verified based on this 2-page document I made earlier today that Helen Keller was a fucking retard. And she absolutely was used by Anne Sullivan. And let me add to this. She came from a very, very wealthy family, and her parents did not want to accept that she was retarded. They were very afraid of that. And so they paid
We
Anne Sullivan.
saw that in the movie where she would go around and just smash things on the table and take everyone's food like an animal.
Exactly. And so her parents were
Wow.
desperate. They would pay any amount to any teacher. You think Anne Sullivan was the first teacher that came in there? No, there were tons of teachers that came in prior that said, yeah, I'm sorry, she doesn't have a lot of
Ran out
mental
screaming.
she can't engage with reality. Unfortunately, it is very sad. It's a very sad story, but that doesn't change the fact that she had rich parents who were heavily invested in her not being a mental midget. And they used Anne Sullivan, who then used Helen Keller to both raise money for her own political causes and espouse the same beliefs that she held in order to get publicity. Something else you don't know about her. She did not get publicity and become famous after all of her stuff, all of her speeches. She was a novelty way before that. She was a novelty way prior to any of this. Just when she went to an all-girls school who could obviously speak and see and hear, that was like a national news story in the early 1900s. Oh my God, she's really going to school with these people. How can you graduate school in 4 years if not only can you not go back and reread things and reanalyze things without someone giving it to you, but you also have the ability to read at when a paragraph takes 5 hours to read, you're not graduating the same time. This shit is so absurd. It is so absurd on its fucking
So why
face.
would they give her like a diploma? Because didn't she get a university diploma also? And
She was famous. She was famous.
yeah,
And
yeah. So what
never-
motive would the university have? Publicity for like
Publicity.
graduating this fucking retard?
Yeah.
So eloquently put it. Jesus.
It sounds to me like what you're saying
Terrible.
is Helen Keller, secret genius.
Secret retard, and there we go. There's my
Wow.
one.
I am stunned. Dude, that was fucking concise. I give it to you.
Thank
Nicely
you.
done.
She's a retard. So there's my first one. The Einstein one's even better.
But yeah,
Let's do it, man. We got to
one-
get
one
us a
more
little
thing.
retarded kid.
Does that
One
link
more
work
thing.
for you
Wouldn't
boys?
we have? You're right. Wouldn't we have seen more deaf, blind people excelling, especially in this day and age? You look at people with disabilities that were
access.
that kept them out of any type of social interaction even a few decades ago, and now people are living perfectly well in society with certain mental problems or what. And you would think you'd get one more Helen Keller who would be deaf and blind and going around and touring and
It's
nothing,
almost like
nothing.
it's almost like it was easier to bullshit people 130 years ago. It's almost that's what it
Very
was.
good.
No,
My
because what you're
God.
describing is exactly what they did with Coco, the gorilla. It would just
yes.
Coco can't speak at all. She just makes symbols, and the bitch, her Anne Sullivan, just says what she thinks Coco means. It's the same
Coco's
exact
saying.
thing.
I was absolutely
No.
devastated when I deep dived
Still
into
need
Coco.
access.
I was like, oh no, this gorilla wasn't talking. I love that story. I loved it
But
so
it's
much.
adorable with the kitten. It puts the hat on and shit like that. So, I'm fine with Coco.
You know something else with Coco is that she had a fixation on nipples and breasts, and so there were people who took out like cases against the zoo because like some chick reporter would show up and be like, "I'm here to talk to Coco," and then some zookeeper would be like, "Yeah, she likes it when you pop your tits out," and like there were newscasters who do that. So Coco could like grab the nip or something, and so
nice Coco.
Sexual harassment.
I wish you had made your conspiracy theory that Coco was in fact not a gorilla, but a man in a gorilla suit.
No, that would be something.
Now that would be fucking hilarious if a guy dressed up as a fucking gorilla and had perfect sign language.
Yeah.
But also like titties.
Yeah. Woody, I did manage to open your
The third
your
one I think
slot.
should work.
The third one works.
Yeah.
One works for me. Yeah. So Woody likes to create PowerPoints to go along with his conspiracy slides. And so but just because we always vote at the end of these, because the goal is to try and convince people who is compelled by my Helen Keller presentation.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You're gonna win.
That was crazy.
You're gonna win. I haven't heard Kyle's yet, but
I'm throwing away all my Helen Keller memorabilia I have around the house. Fuck that.
You kicked off so strong.
See, but the goddamn Helen Keller shit just makes perfect
Oh, it's
sense.
killer.
It's a strong one.
It's so obvious. We have history. We have obviously she couldn't have done that. So yeah, wow, that's a tough one. That is.
I
He's
remember
gonna
watching
win,
that
but
movie.
there's two left.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie in school and being taught about the miracle worker and Helen Keller.
Yeah.
And it hurts to come to the realization that yes, she was a fraud. Like
It
he's
was
brought this up
bullshit.
before, and I was like, "You're just an asshole. You're just an
Yeah.
asshole." She's an
You're
inspirational
crushing my
story.
childhood.
But if he's to be believed, I've done zero research on my own, that no one has ever done what she did, then you're left with two options. Either she's either a genius or a retard. It's literally one or the other. Like she's
It's
like
gotta
either the
be.
smartest deafblind person that's ever existed. Like if she'd had her senses, she'd have been Einstein. Maybe not Einstein, because apparently he's about to disprove Einstein. But
Oh yeah, right.
or she in fact was a literal retarded person.
I think it's like when like Anne Sullivan must have been like with Helen thinking it was like a dog. You ever see people online? They're like, "Look, my dog," and it goes, "Oh, it's saying I love you."
Yeah.
My dog said I
yes.
love you. It's like, no, your stupid dog didn't say I love you.
Right. It made three
food or
syllables.
It needs
I'll
to
give
take
you
a
that.
shit or
And
something.
instead,
So-
it's more like it's like this, and she's like, she says that
Yeah.
capitalism is inherently flawed, folks.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let me read you a supposed quote from Helen.
Oh, okay. I would like to hear a quote from the great Ms. Keller.
Did she ever get married? That would be interesting.
Supposed
Oh
quote
God.
from her that lines up exactly with the beliefs of her teacher. It is
It's got fucking paper.
When we
This
watched
is
that
great.
movie in junior high, the only thing I remember is the 20-minute speech our teacher gave us about how if anyone laughed at the end of the movie, how much, like he had a whole chart on this is how, if you snicker, this is how much trouble you're going to get in.
Yeah. I
All
can
right,
see
man.
that.
We don't,
God,
you
that's
fucking,
funny.
you are showing us this movie. We don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Can I just conjugate verbs in the
You're-
outside, please?
It was a great way to find out who was going to be a comic in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, okay, that's going to be a comic.
He sat on my desk as during the entire movie. All right, man.
I believe that.
Your balls are on my hand, dude. He's like, tell your parents they're not going to care. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Can I at least watch? It sounds funny. What's going? No, you may not watch.
try watching that movie as a 14-year-old and not cracking the fuck up. It's so funny.
Yeah, there's no way.
So can we walk out of that class like drunks, like just silent? That was the good shit, man. That was the good shit.
Whoa, whoa.
So tell me if you think this seems more likely to have come from Anne Sullivan, her teacher, who is very politically motivated, or more likely to come from a person, the only person in human history, blind, deaf, and mostly dumb, that can't that can actually
Pinball wizard.
Yeah. Here's Helen Keller's quote, translated by Anne Sullivan. Our worst foes are ignorance, poverty, and the unconscious cruelty of our commercial society.
Oh, fuck.
These are the causes of blindness. These are the enemies which destroy the sight of children and workmen and undermine the health of mankind. Does that seem like a blind, deaf person?
Nah.
Helen Keller said that?
No,
how long did it take her to say it? How many months did it take her to say that?
She was a college graduate, Taylor. She speaks like that.
Anne Sullivan said that shit. I'm throwing this in the finished box. I win.
Oh my god!
Either that retard was more eloquent than all of us combined.
It's a slam dunk, my
Or
friend.
the more likely thing is that she was manipulated and used. So, just saying.
Bring.com.
I'm telling you, even Helen Keller stuff, you go on Google and you try and search it, you get a curated list of sources. You go on Bing and it's like you actually get what the highest ranking
this piece of shit. Yeah, piece of shit. Helen Keller's the first thing that comes up.
What I was searching was
retard,
bitch, idiot. I could say all this right to her face, and she would know what the fuck was going on.
She would know. Fuck. What?
That's
what are you saying to me? What did you
Let
call me?
Let her go like this on my face. She's not gonna have a fucking clue what I'm saying.
You just like point her finger at herself and then dump a load of shit in her hand. You're fucking shit.
What is it, Ellen? It's shit.
She learns to communicate through sense of smell.
How's your sense of smell?
It didn't get to this point, but one of my evidences of Helen Keller was just going to be to link you guys a video and be like, she's clearly retarded. She's clearly a retarded person.
She would have to be. I don't know if I made my point well before, but it's like, even if her brain wasn't born dysfunctional, without potential, it wasn't nourished.
It's just not getting the input.
My mom's
it's
an
empty hard drive.
My mom's a teacher, and she has seen those environmentally retarded kids who just like grew up with like dumb parents who didn't like talk to them at all, and now they're retarded and they'll never be like the same again. Like if they had been fostered in like an educational environment, okay, you could work at Walmart, Billy. But instead, they grew up absolutely malnourished mentally.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's a specific amount of time that a child has to learn the basics. And a parent has to be very nurturing and fostering, and they have to learn things by touch and smell and all their senses. And if they don't in that really limited amount of time, they're going to have all kinds of developmental problems later. So
true.
You got to get in there early with that shit.
That's why. So I have some expertise. I have a special needs son, and he had like a big language delay. So we spent like our whole lives racing the clock, trying to get him to certain language.
Right. Those what are they called? Landmarks. Yeah.
Because whatever, he turns 21 and you can't expect a lot of speech improvement after that.
Yeah. It's such an odd, fucking amazing thing how that works. It's just goop. Why does the time matter?
Right? Yeah.
It's just a big load of goop. It's not a fucking computer with a timer and a circuit stops. It's just goo.
And what's so special about language? You could learn something. If you had to learn, I don't know, a new city or something, you'd be fine. But you can't learn a language? I don't know. But
like a language, and that's the weirdest thing. Like children learn their basic language without a book, without just hearing shit.
Yeah.
And then you could spend a year in fucking France. You're not learning French. I don't think without a book or something, just hearing shit, I don't think you'd learn it.
It's neuroplasticity. There's a point at which your brain becomes less receptive to receiving that kind of input, and it's much younger than we would think. And so, like, when I wrote that Helen Keller was not environmentally retarded. Like she didn't come from a bunch of like a retarded family. She came from a very rich family, like I said, but she had a disease at 19 months that knocked out those senses.
Was it scarlet fever?
That is literally what they said it was. Yeah,
I had scarlet fever at 2
scarlet
years.
Fever.
You
did?
Yeah.
When the fuck were you born?
73.
Jesus Christ.
No.
You have cholera too?
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, we had the
dysentery.
What the fuck is the bee plague called? I can't think of its name.
The bubonic plague?
That's what I'm going for. I had the
bubonic plague.
Black Death.
I was trying to avoid the embarrassment of calling it the bulimic plague.
Bulimic plague.
I couldn't get past it. I'm stuck on it.
A squirrel with the bubonic plague.
It made me throw up a lot.
Colorado.
Colorado,
they just found a squirrel.
I read that was
normal,
lock
it down.
I read that squirrels
I don't think it's that big a deal, though. Like, I think the bubonic plague is totally curable with antibiotics or something. It's not a big thing anymore. Yeah, penicillin. So, but they're like, oh, squirrel has it. So we're all supposed to lose our.
But I think squirrels have it. I read squirrels have it a lot. I have to check my sources.
Do. Yeah.
But it's like the year of the shark. I don't remember this. Sometime like, I don't know, 7 years ago. The sharks were fucking everywhere. The East Coast, every time there's a bite, they made the Time magazine is covering it. The year there. Turns out that was about a normal year for sharks. It was just a media creation.
It's how they present it.
And that might
media
be what
does this with everything. They do it with everything.
Every fucking thing.
Media has the unique ability to construct narratives wherever they see fit. Like they can just do it. They can just create.
Scare the shit out of people, make them do things, which is exactly what I think this COVID thing is. But whatevs.
Well, I don't know. That's like I was more talking about the media pumping up this fraud Einstein.
Oh, that guy. Or that fucking retard Helen Keller.
Or that fucking retard Helen Keller. She can go fuck herself. Well, not really. She can't go fuck herself because she was a retard.
No, her hands work fine.
I would just lay my dick in her hand and tell her to read the fucking Bible or something. She's just going like this.
She's rail off your cock.
Yeah.
What if that, like, her communication style gave her this like extra dexterity and she gave great hand jobs?
Oh, Helen Keller hand job.
Even her hand is fucking retarded. And she's doing shit. She doesn't know what's up. I'm done with the I'm done with the apology for Helen Keller. She can go fuck
I love this. I am watching videos. I am going down the Helen Keller fucking rabbit hole tonight.
And you know what so much the Helen Keller rabbit hole for me was? It was watching videos and being like, this doesn't support my conclusion.
All right, let me find something that supports. That's my life, by the way.
That's my
Facebook
feed.
Something that supports my fucking that's Twitter, that's Facebook, and everything. Fuck you. Oh, that agrees with what I think.
Yeah, it's like she learned by blah blah blah, and I'm like, this shit ain't funny. Who cares? No, I'm out of here.
I've got a couple things I'm interested in. One of which is a conspiracy theory that I looked into this week, and I couldn't get enough of because it was so important that I'll just get into it. So this conspiracy purports that Long John Silver's, the fast food seafood restaurant, has never been about seafood. It's been a marijuana laundering drug business the entire time.
You have my attention.
So buckle up. This is important. First of all, ask yourself, have you ever seen a very crowded Long John Silver's?
I have.
You haven't. You're lying. There's never been. There used to be a Long John Silver's around here. It was the only fast food place that I was like, oh, I can go there because there's no line. I'm in a hurry because
I prefer Captain D's.
No, everyone does.
It's easier to go to the moon than to fake a crowded Long John Silver's, I've heard.
Yeah. So with that in mind, there's never been a huge line at a Long John Silver's ever. So, and I've got the whole epic written out. So the history is is that Long John Silver started in 1969 in Lexington, Kentucky, from a man named Jim Patterson. And he wanted to have a seafood restaurant, a popular seafood restaurant. That's what he wanted to do. And he wanted to do it fast food because no one had kind of stormed, no one had done that yet. And so he's like, all right, 1969, fucking, we're starting our seafood fast food restaurant in Lexington, Kentucky. Never quite takes off. Meanwhile, there was a moonshining family only a few miles away that had made a fuck ton of money during Prohibition. But after Prohibition ended, they were struggling, and they were kind of, their ganghold on the area, ganghold, who knows how big it was in Lexington or in the surrounding areas. Big. It was, maybe, they were starting to lose their hold because income wasn't coming in as quickly. The guy's name was Johnny Boone. And Johnny Boone was the descendant of those moonshiners, the child of them, and he wanted to get his criminal enterprise back up. And so he decided, I'm going to get into marijuana. And so he started the Cornbread Mafia out of Lexington, Kentucky, which was all about bringing weed in, selling it, and making a bunch of money. And they did that for years. And eventually it got to the point where it's like, well, we can't launder this through little, locally owned gas stations and shit or laundromats anymore. It's not going to work. We need to find someone we can launder this through. Who do they find? Jim Patterson, the owner of Long John Silver's. They go, Jim, we got a lot of money. We know that your little seafood restaurant is struggling. How about we help you expand a little bit? And so for the next 20 years, Long John Silver's is expanding across the country. None of them have ever been busy. None of them are serving fish. It's all Johnny Boone's weed money coming in, laundering through Long John Silver's, and then they get it back. And so they both agreed to it. Jim Patterson is exploding. Long John Silver's is expanding all over the place. Meanwhile, everybody's saying, it's not a very busy place. Food's not very good. That's what people are saying. Ask anyone. And and so the pot is making so much money, and Long John Silver's is spreading so quickly that Johnny Boone becomes the godfather of grass in the South in the 80s. And so in the mid-'80s, the FBI starts looking into Long John Silver's and into Johnny Boone. And they catch Johnny Boone between 87 and 91. That's when the investigation was, and 91 is when they finally nabbed him up. And so they nab him up, they put him in prison, but the Cornbread Mafia doesn't want to stop. They're rolling. They've got lots of pot money. They've got so much pot money that they sponsored commercials for local politicians going against heroin because heroin was getting big at the time, and they wanted the public perception of heroin to be heroin's evil, heroin's bad, heroin will give you AIDS because, the 80s AIDS scare, and associating anything with AIDS in the 80s was a death sentence. And so they were associating heroin with AIDS as much as possible, and that did successfully for a little while in certain regions slow down heroin consumption. And what did that do? Boost up marijuana consumption. And that helps the Cornbread Mafia a lot. And so the crux of this is that Long John Silver's has never, ever been popular. They've never independently turned a profit. And it was the Cornbread Mafia, initially led by Johnny Boone, that is responsible for the few remaining Long John Silver's. And look this up. Look at how many locations they've closed. You know why? In the last couple of decades, why they've closed so many is because marijuana legalization and the dissolving of much of the Cornbread Mafia. So all of these things, I'm not saying to believe it. I'm just saying everything I just said is absolute fact.
Yeah, none of that's true.
No, that's true. I read it online.
The thing about the restaurant not being crowded is true, and that's the foundation of all of it.
Well, the real problem is that fried fish isn't very healthy, and that's not what people are after. And there's a competitor called Captain D's, which is just superior. I don't know if you've ever had the deviled crab at Captain D's, but
I think my 6 generation long weed smuggling laundering train is a little more Occam's razor.
Like, this is something like one of the conspiracy rabbit holes. Like, I keep trying to go down, but I can't find anything good for it. So, like, Antarctica. What the fuck is going on down there? And why, there are military bases down there. Like, lots of countries have military bases down there. And if you show up in Antarctica, they will kill you. They will shoot you in the head. They'll like as you're like if you just take a boat to Antarctica, get off and start walking around, they will kill you. Like
You
I did not know about this.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this at all, and I was like,
you,
what the fuck? What's going on?
Is that first of all? Did you get that from a good source? I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, it came to me in a dream.
He's got my vote.
Now I know.
That'd be the worst source I can imagine.
There's this is like not like I saw some like the conspiratorial part is like, oh, there's something under the ice out there, and there's like an underground civilization or the remains of Atlantis, that kind of thing or whatever. Maybe not Atlantis. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe. But like the part that's not really debated is like, yeah, you cannot go to Antarctica. Like you can't go there. They'll shoot you.
Yeah. So I've heard of people. I don't know if it's immediately they just execute you. From what I've heard, they're like, leave. Get off, because you can't privately make your way to Antarctica, because there's some weird treaty with Antarctica. It's called I forget the word for it. Essentially, no nation can place ownership over it or
it's all scientific research.
Place a fact. Yeah, it's all scientific research,
which
is the reason
law,
that they
but that implies there's no law there technically. So I think they're going to have a hard time arresting me under any real powers. Maybe maritime law. Does maritime?
I don't think
law
it's illegal. I think it's a very gray area. They're just like, get out, essentially.
They consider me a pirate if I like grabbed my my retarded Malamute and started sledding deep into the Antarctic center.
You wouldn't be sledding deep.
Look, he's a big boy, goddammit.
He is strong. He has the power of 3 normal dogs.
He has 3 dog power.
No loud noises, though.
So the conspiracy around Antarctica begins with World War II. There was a German research base in Antarctica called Camp something, rather, I forget, but some number designation. Anyway, after the war was over in 1947, they sent a admiral by the name of Admiral Byrd to Antarctica in something called Operation High Jump, where he was sent with, I think, 20 men total to just like reconnoiter, investigate whatever the Germans were doing down there, to check out their facilities. And whenever they got back, they were all given a gag order and the Medal of Honor. And that's it. So
they were all given a gag order in the medal. All of them were given the Medal of Honor.
They were placed on like a 48-hour debrief, if I recall correctly. They were ordered to never speak about what they found, which that part's probably pretty standard to most military reconnoiter operations.
I think they stopped Hitler from being able to acquire alien technology down there, and they brought it home.
Now we're on the right path.
I don't think Hitler.
I think Hitler was down there. So my favorite conspiracy theory, the one that I crave to be real, is the ancient civilizations one. The one, and when they lay out the timeline of the Earth's life, you're like, oh shit, this one does kind of make a bit of sense, right?
Like Atlantis,
because
they're like, yeah,
we've only been here for such a short period of time, like our civilization, like the last 6,000 years that we've actually recorded and can remember more or less. And the planet's been habitable, and we've been humans like we are for a very long time. Like we could have easily peaked and like been like pyramid building, and then lost that and then 50,000 years went by. We resorted back to like hunter gathering people who don't even understand agriculture, and then we could have done it 3 or 4 times in the amount of time there's just no evidence for it, right? And so that's when you got to look to places like maybe Antarctica, maybe like wasn't that a tropical place a long time ago? Probably predating humans, but I know at some point it was like maybe close to where Australia is.
Over like enough millions of years, all that shit's cyclical, right? With like because
you had Pangea or something, right, where everything was one giant megacontinent and then it broke up. But for a long time, I think Antarctica was more of a tropical thing, like in the Australia area ish.
If there was something that like changed in elevation, we would have found that under the seas by now, or no? Because I guess that we really haven't been.
I don't think we've charted the seas very well.
What do you mean by change in elevation? Like if there was,
like if it was like, oh, there was this that's the only one I know, so I keep saying Atlantis. Oh, it used to be here, and then water levels changed 1 million years ago, and now it's deep under the sea or something.
That's actually fairly common. Not just in like ancient civilizations, like the Greek city of. Man, I know all this stuff until I'm asked about it. There was a Greek city near the coast that was like this sprawling landscape that was flooded in, I forget when. That's supposedly the inspiration for Stories of Atlantis. There's also one off the coast of what's the country that gets hit by tsunamis all the time? It's not Japan, Southeast Asia.
Indonesia?
I think Indonesia. There was a city that was built in like the 1300s that had gone completely underwater. And what was wild is a couple years ago when they got hit with their last tsunami, this place has been underwater for hundreds of years. When the water drew back before the wave, for the first time, the entire city, like this underwater city with these statues and buildings, the footage of it's wild.
That's really cool.
The people who took the footage were having a terrible time.
I really like the idea of ancient forgotten technologies that might differ from ours greatly enough that they would be cool and interesting and maybe something could be discoverable. I think that Baghdad battery shit is bullshit. I don't give a goddamn. It was probably a sex toy. They were putting that thing on somebody's clit to like.
I don't know what that is. They found these like primitive like makeshift batteries. It's like a clay pot with I think you got like an acidic solution and maybe a copper tube or something like that, and maybe there's another metal that's involved. But in any case, it could form an ancient battery. You could make an electrical charge. And but they're not powering laptops back then with that thing. They're fucking like sticking their dicks in it because it feels weird. They're shocking each other for fun.
Yeah, I that's probably like I could imagine a religious ritual where they use science to like reinforce religion the way that remember in what's that awesome Mel Gibson movie the Apocalypto, when they know the eclipse is coming and the priest kind of looks over at the head honcho like, yeah, it's coming. And by priest, he's like he's an astronomer like from 1,000 years ago, and he's just like, here it comes. And so the king is like, bah, 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 the sun disappears, and they're like, holy shit, the boss made this. And then he's like, and come back. Like as soon as the priest gives him the go ahead nod for that, and it's like, you can imagine how you're gonna get in line for a man who does something like that, like a guy who can make the sun like disappear and come back. If that's magic. Someone knowing that the sun is going, they wouldn't even think of it that way. They'd never take that extra leap, like, because how could you know it was coming, right? Unless you understood astronomy.
Yeah.
No, I like that a lot. So I like the idea of lost civilizations and that stuff just being eaten by the
ravages of time.
Well, yeah, the way the Earth's crust goes under itself and just gets eaten over and over until there's no, it's just gone. It's gone.
It is wild to think about like buried cities. Like we build civilization on top of civilization, and think of like everything that's sunk underneath. Concepts of sunken cities from like old lore, not like in the ocean, like the land gave way and there's these underground caverns.
Well, there's that thing in have you seen the thing, the Graham Hancock stuff about the Göbekli Tepe place in Turkey?
I've heard of it, and it's supposed to be like a super old civilization, or some people theorize that.
Yeah, that Graham Hancock guy, he's been on Rogan a bunch of times. I read his books; they're good. But he thinks that a comet came and melted flash melted a huge ice cap and flooded out this ancient civilization that existed like 10 or 20,000 years ago in Turkey. And they found this huge structure that was built there, and people should have been like hunter gatherers with stone tools back then, and instead you would have had to have like a civilization, because somebody's got to be hunting and gathering to get extra food so that you can have artisans who could even make something, like that. And supposedly
you kind of need agriculture.
So that's an interesting one. I don't know. I like that stuff a lot. I like lost mysteries. And the other one I really like is the idea of life being on one of the moons of Saturn or Jupiter, maybe like under the ice.
What's the one everyone says is super habitable?
Titan, maybe.
I think Titan.
Europa.
That sounds right.
There's a movie about Europa. Yeah.
What is it called? Is that?
I think it's Titan.
Titan.
I think Titan's the one everyone says that like it's almost habitable.
I don't want to live on any of them.
And no. It's a couple kilometers of ice at least, and then but then you've got a warm.
Yeah, that's
ocean.
habitable.
But you've got a warm ocean down
briefly.
Yeah.
And I think
anything's habitable for small amounts of time.
Very briefly.
I think that like the most ambitious scientists think that there's probably be like some amoebas or some like bacteria down there that feeds off of thermal activity. But I really want there to
monsters.
be.
I don't give a shit about that.
Like
I need
mermaids.
I need something with hands for me to really care. Like something that made tools.
If I get there and the fish has hands, I'm going back.
Yeah. Well, that would just confirm it's like, oh, so somebody had a nuclear apocalypse here a long time ago. And now all the fish are peeling their kelp at the bottom of the sea or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I couldn't think of anything they would do with hands. Seems like a bad idea. But
I've been looking at a bunch of like weird sci-fi. I wanted a new sci-fi book, so I've been watching YouTube videos about various like sci-fi authors. And it might be an Isaac Asimov. I don't know who wrote this one, but the premise is that aliens come to Earth and they just sort of like hover over us. And we do try to attack them, but it like bounces off and they're like, chill, listen, we're here to help. Our bosses sent us here to get you guys up to speed. You're going to join the Galactic Federation. You can't look at us though. We're rough looking. Okay. We're going to hang out here for a while. When you get used to us, our ships and then communicating with us, then we'll reveal ourselves. And that goes on for like many years, like 10, 20, I don't know how many, like call it 10, 15 years. And sure enough, they've really enriched humanity. Like the technology's better, culture's better, everything's better. And they're like, all right, it's time. Chill though, right? And they like step out of their craft and they literally look like the devil. They literally look like the devil, like horns and pointy tails and like pointy teeth and claws. But there's no twist at the end. They're just nice. They really are these like ambivalent, nice people. They're like, don't be scared. We know that a lot of people get scared of us and all. I'm Mark.
This is my husband Alan, and it's like, oh, they're positive. Like,
I've been looking for a new one to read. It's that or Helldivers. I kind of want to go back to the Helldivers series.
What's
and finish
Helldivers?
That. Oh, that's the one where
the average life is 10 jumps, and this guy's on jump 95, and he's hard ass. I remember.
Yeah, the Earth's all poisoned, and we live in the sky on a hover ship. Those books are fun.
I want to read a book about Antarctica. I don't care if it is 100% whole cloth made up. Like I just like if it's a fun story. Yeah, just start off with something kind of fun where it's like the Nazis left, and then just make it up.
Yep.
Just
have a good time. That's all that matters.
That's what matters in all these theories, that you're having a fun time.
Exactly. The funnest part about it is there was a second Operation High Jump, if I remember, like in the 60s or the 70s, when a group supposedly went to Antarctica. One of the funnest theories is that they took cameras there and had like this broken footage of like plant life they discovered and like a civilization of people under the ice. Love it. Fantastic. I believe it. Don't need any further information.
I want to believe
all living under the ice.
100%.
Because our existence is a little boring at times, right? Like, like the stuff that happens in movies is so dynamic and big and earth changing, and nothing really big has ever happened in our lifetime. It's not really like even to us, it doesn't feel real, But I want something that's so big that even if you're not touched by it, it feels big. Like I want to discover some aliens. Or do a thing, right?
Seems like it'd have to be aliens, right? Like what else could it be?
I do want, or one of those lost civilizations. I want to find some mole people under Antarctica, and they've been under there for like 80,000 years. And their technology is way better than ours,
or way worse. I'm fine with that.
But they're mole people, so we just beat the fuck out of them.
I can't wait to kill it. Yeah.
Aliens show up and they're like pedaling. And we're like, so that brings us
alignment
to Albert Einstein. Oh my God. So my contention with this conspiracy is not that Albert Einstein was some idiot, some moron. It's that media and pop culture has turned him into a guy who discovered all of these things around the same time. And yet when you actually do a deep dive on it, you realize that even contemporary scientists, this part isn't a conspiracy at all. Contemporary scientists with Einstein fucking hated him because he had a habit of plagiarizing. He would not give people credit for things that he found out. And so basically the way they describe it is this, is that let's say Kyle, Woody, and I are building an obelisk, right? And Kyle puts a stone down. Woody puts a stone down. Kyle, Woody. When it gets to the capstone, I put a little capstone on it. And then not only do I say I created the obelisk, I say I own it because I did the last thing on there because he was notorious for not acknowledging prior intellectual people. And so here's a bunch of actual examples you can look up. People in his time were like fucking pissed about this, and it gets buried now. In 1878, James Maxwell in Scotland published Special Theory of Relativity in the Encyclopedia Britannica, which Einstein copied heavily in his own 1905 Theory of Relativity and did not cite Maxwell. Didn't cite him. Took all the research that Maxwell did 27 years prior, applied it to his own shit. Didn't give him credit. From Maxwell, Einstein, not Epstein. Einstein also on conspiracy.
This conspiracy runs deep.
Pedophile Island. That is a conspiracy.
Yeah. Another key part of relativity was that the idea that speed of light was a constant and was independent of the motion of its source. That's something that Maxwell wrote about in 1878, and then that Einstein co-opted and pretended he discovered in 1905. Maxwell studied the phenomenon of light extensively and first proposed that it was electromagnetic in nature. He wrote that in 1878, stolen by Einstein. 1898, Paul Gerber in Germany publishes the exact equations in Annalen der Physik, which Einstein published 17 years later in 1915 as his perihelion motion of Mercury, with no credit to Gerber, claiming that he was in the dark and he suddenly came to it in his sleep. In 1920, after being pressured on this, Einstein admits to plagiarism. He admitted to it. He admitted that he took that from Paul Gerber in 1898. 1900, Max Planck and Wilhelm Wien of Germany developed the quantum theory, which Einstein plagiarized in his light quantum paper in 1905. He did not cite Planck nor Wien, even though later it was clear that he was copy-pasting, or whatever the version of that was. 1903. Yeah, 1903. Olinto de Preto publishes E equals MC squared in Ate, a scientific magazine which Einstein was an avowed avid reader. He later claimed as his own work, and he failed to cite de Preto. Took the E equals MC squared, published it years later, took it for himself. 1905, Albert publishes 4 groundbreaking essays in the field of theoretical physics. What they don't tell you is that this is stolen from people by the names of James Maxwell, Henrik Lorentz, Joseph Larmor, Olito de Preto, Robert Brown, Ludwig Boltzmann, Frederick Hassenor, and George Fitzgerald. All of these people wrote about this years, sometimes decades prior, and he amalgamated all of their research into an unoriginal piece that he then released without citing any of them. And media, pop culture grabs onto that and says, oh my God, Einstein's discovered all this. Meanwhile, lots of concurrent contemporary peers of his are saying, what the fuck? Like, this was an actual thing in the scientific community at the time. You want to hear about it now? They're like, dude, Einstein, what the fuck, dude? Like, we did all this.
Is that
we
a
did
quote?
all. Well,
Yeah, 1908.
what?
Dude. The first use of the word. He does get the first use of the word dude.
Hey, motherfucker, what the hell's up with you, copying my discoveries, is what he said. It was like, what the fuck? They were all very, like, this is a real thing. Scientists hated him because he would never cite people who discovered things. He would take it, pretend it was his. 1915, Einstein presents his paper and publishes the general theory of relativity based on the mathematics of Marcel Grossman and Bernhard Riemann from a decade prior. Again, he does not cite these men. It was 1878 that the theory of relativity was first getting put, into popular scientific understanding by James Maxwell. These other guys built on it, and Einstein failed to acknowledge any of their contributions, instead doing the thing that lots of scientists accused him of, which was laying a capstone on something and then claiming ownership of everything that came prior, instead of doing what most scientists do, which is, hey, I added a little bit here. Thank you, Weissman, blah, 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 all of them for it. So, a little additional thing, he was apparently so unimpressive as a physicist that he wasn't even consulted in the Manhattan Project. 130,000 people were consulted on the Manhattan Project, and apparently Einstein wasn't up to snuff. Henry Poincaré was the foremost expert on relativity in the late 19th century and the first person to formally present the theories, having published more than 30 books and over 500 papers on the topic. Extensive documentation exists that Einstein and his associates have studied Poincaré's theories and mathematics for years, yet when Einstein published his almost wholly plagiarized work, he made no reference to Poincaré's mathematics. Like I said earlier, a non-comprehensive list of those that's confirmed, absolutely confirmed, he plagiarized from James Maxwell, Henrik Lorentz, Joseph Larmor, and a dozen others. In 1895, Einstein failed the entrance exam to an engineering school in Zurich. That's interesting. I thought he was like a hyper genius. Here's Nikola Tesla on Einstein. Einstein's relativity work is a magnificent mathematical garb which fascinates, dazzles, and makes people blind to the underlying errors. The theory is like a beggar clothed in purple who ignorant people take for a king. Its exponents are brilliant men, but they are metaphysicists rather than scientists. Do you know that while he was doing all these things, he worked as a clerk in a patent office? He worked as a clerk in a patent office, a third-level clerk. Throughout years and years there, they never promoted him. They never made him any more significant. He was a third-class clerk at a government office in Bern, never progressed beyond this level with even years of experience. By all contemporary reports, Einstein wasn't even an accomplished mathematician. It has been well documented that much of the mathematical content of Einstein's so-called theories were well beyond his ability. Walter Isaacson, president of the Aspen Institute, stated that Einstein's first wife, Mileva Maric, was quote, a Serbian physicist who had helped him with his math. Other prominent scientists have made the claim that his wife did a lot of his math for him. Oof. In 1907, Einstein admits to plagiarism. In a paper he wrote in 1907, in part responding to already virulent accusations of plagiarism, Einstein declared that plagiarism was perfectly acceptable as a form of ethical research, stating, quote, "The nature of physics is that what follows has already been partly solved by the authors. I am therefore entitled to leave out a thoroughly pedantic survey of the literature," end quote. In other words, the scientists all built on each other's work, so Einstein could freely compile the work of everyone before him and represent it as his own, with no obligation to even mention them or their work. His view of ethical science was like building a tower where each person adds one stone, and if I had the last stone, I not only take credit for the entire design and construction of the tower, but I own the building. Final note. In 1953, Sir Edmund Whittaker published a detailed account of the origin and development of all the theories and equations of his physics, with extensive reference to the primary sources, documenting beyond doubt that Einstein had no priority in any of it, and clearly stating so in his report. Einstein was alive and well when Whittaker published his book, yet he offered no dispute to the conclusions, no refutation of Whittaker's claim that he, Einstein, had been irrelevant in the entire process. Einstein made no attempts at his own defense and hid in the bushes, ignoring all accusations.
Amazing, man. You missed some good parts, Taylor, because I fucking hate Einstein. Not as much as I hate COVID, but I fucking hate that clown, that bloviating prick. He took credit for everybody's shit and then used it to wax philosophical for the rest of his life. Here's the best part: Einstein, religious zealot. Einstein viciously and famously denied the existence or the validity of quantum mechanics until his death, quoting, "God does not play dice with the universe." I'm sorry, Einstein, but what does God have to do with physics? I think he also stole E equals MC squared from either Lorentz or Dirac, who is barely functionally autistic, taking advantage of a mentally infirmed man to further his scientific career. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The reason he was not asked to be in the Manhattan Project is because Oppenheimer knew he was a pussy. That's why. And he would never use the weapon. The nuke, that beautiful nuke, was intended to be a tactical war battlefield device, and he knew that Einstein would either not support it or give it away to the enemy. So he kept him out of it on purpose. Fuck Einstein.
So your theory is that the Jewish guy was pro-Nazi?
No, he was very left-leaning. He was denied security access, and all the other scientists were also told not to discuss the
all of this
project with Einstein.
I left that one kind of unconvinced.
It was Einstein's letter, though, that made the Manhattan Project even happen.
That's true.
I got that. It's like, hey, we need to, get a move on this thing because Hitler might be doing it. I like it. I like what you said, but you could do the same thing with Led Zeppelin and old blues singers. So Led Zeppelin is the band that just happened to get popular with it. They stole all of it from old black blues singers, and you only wanted Led Zeppelin because they presented it in a better way. So
Elvis.
There's some equity in how maybe he was just more entertaining with his wacky hair. Maybe that obelisk, like in a video game where you add on, but it's not real. It's like a framework or lattice work until that last thing is put on, and then it goes boom, and now it's one piece. So until you put that last piece on, it's not really a full thing yet, and you do own it after.
And it's my suspicion that you could do that with most scientists, right? You know, like,
yes,
what do I have to credit
so.
Everyone from Euclid to, I looked him up, Muhammad IBM Musa Al-Khwarizmi, the inventor of
the
algebra.
Number?
Yeah. Like,
that's I went by that radio name back in 1985.
Right. Like, it is nearly impossible to credit
catchy.
The entire tower of scientific and mathematic discovery that happened before you got there.
See, but I will add to this. There's a very big difference between them citing Euclid and citing someone who made the exact same discovery 27 years prior or 15 years prior or 2 years prior.
But even your arguments were not exact same. It was, hey, he took this, added to it, and now he gets all this credit for it. And to Anthony's point, there was a whole lot of like, well, shucks, maybe that adding to it was the most capstone. Important part. It was the thing that made it a useful science, or I don't know.
So maybe I explained it poorly. He wasn't adding to it in the way that you would think. He was amalgamating content.
Your whole theory is based on me understanding amalgamating. That's where it falls apart.
He was the Stan Lee of physics.
He was taking
bits and pieces with you. I know.
He was taking bits and pieces of already established science and then reformulating it into something. And he would put his own take on there, and then that's what Tesla added to it. He would say,
like a stupid artist would take paints of different color and dab them and make a beautiful paint.
Not in that way.
I get it. What a hack.
That's not entirely what I'm saying.
It's more like a react video on YouTube. You would watch the movie and then go, "Whoa! Wow, what did you guys think of my react video? Wasn't that entertaining?" He's watching The Godfather 2, going, "Oh man, wow! Hey everybody, check this out! Check this out! What did you think of my movie?"
Look at Tesla. Look at Tesla's take on him. His take said it better than I could because Tesla was way fucking smarter than me or Einstein, and he said, basically, he compiled a bunch of information from previous research, and then he, on top of that, would add almost sophistry that wasn't falsifiable and wasn't useful. That's what Tesla's take was.
Tesla. Oh, AC is better than DC. That guy.
Tesla died like completely penniless, in love with a pigeon, right?
I don't care.
Was it a hot
pigeon? In a hotel room, in a shitty hotel room, in love with a pigeon.
You know what a good sign is that someone's a fucking genius is that they die alone in a hotel room in love with a pigeon.
I'm right on target.
I feel like Taylor could go either way on that argument. Like that's the sign of a genius. That's the sign of a moron. Whatever supports his argument.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The whole point is to present the argument the way I want to present it.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, Taylor.
But also, like
you opened too big with the Helen Keller thing, my friend.
Yeah, would it have been better to close with Helen Keller?
If you closed with Helen Keller, we all would have been considering the other ones, and then Helen Keller would have been like, "Oh fuck, of course."
I hope everybody's convinced of Helen Keller at least, because that's
please.
Yeah, I'm convinced of Helen Keller. That one wins for sure. Not only was it pretty entertaining, but I'm pretty sure that she was a retarded person.
You convinced Helen Keller the fifth.
Yeah.
She's like, she watched the show and said, yes, fuck her.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm open to the idea that she was environmentally retarded, right? Like, because of a lack of audio and visual stimuli, she might not have been born with a broken brain, but how could she have developed a fully formed one?
Well, retarded doesn't necessarily mean that like her brain wasn't functional. It just means she's held back. She's restrained in some way or another. And by that definition, she's retarded.
Like, to not have the input like that. Even as a kid watching that movie, as a kid, I would think like, well, how the hell would you know if someone signs into your hand what they're even trying to reference? You could go like this and go glass and then do some kind of letters. but there's no way to really make the connection. There's too many missing parts. You could think, like you said, is it like something hard, thin, this, like,
Does
what
it
are you
mean
trying
cold?
to tell me? Yeah, that would let me know that what you're spelling is what this is.
Yeah.
Crazy.
An understanding of meaning
Right.
at all. No way whatsoever. And so I'm glad that one resonated.
Oh,
Damn,
I love that one.
Came into this episode being like, dude, the Helen Keller one isn't going to work very well, but the Einstein one, that one's going to go good for me. Complete opposite. Just goes to show.
I still think Einstein, what are you going to do?
I would never say
he's Einstein. I think it was just a better he presented it. But people, I don't know. Did he schmooze with the right people in the media that put him over?
Yeah.
Maybe. And that's part of, that was part of the whole thing, I guess.
Here's what it is with me and Einstein. The modern scientists seem to have a lot of respect for him. When you hear Stephen Cox speak, he speaks really highly of Einstein.
Stephen Hawking?
No, Cox, I think. COX. Do I have his name wrong?
Oh.
Who's Stephen Cox?
Name.
Fucking genius, teaches in England or something. Let me see if
porn star.
Of course.
He was on Joe Rogan's show. That's where I discovered him.
It seems like Einstein is like the kind of guy who would like those Facebook pages that are like, I fucking love science.
His name's Brian Cox. I don't know if that fixes it.
Oh, Brian Cox.
Stars.
Sounds like Einstein was no Einstein. So it sounds like.
Yeah. Like when you listen to guys like Brian Cox and I can't name a bunch of modern scientists. Neil Tyson deGrasse, maybe
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Thanks, Anthony. These guys seem to have a lot of respect for Einstein. Therefore, I do. That's where my thing comes from.
But they know who they're talking to. Like, they're smart and they're shamelessly self-promotional. They know exactly the audience that they're not going to get up there and go, hey, by the way, Einstein was an idiot. I just wanted you guys to know. They're going to go, you know what? Einstein was smart and all of you are smart for thinking he was smart. Now, get out your checkbooks and write.
Pretty good.
Buy my book. That's the plan.
He's pretty good. That's a good point. They are very self-promoting. Scientists, like, if you know a scientist's name, he's already a piece of shit. Self-promoting. I can't imagine anyone would know a real scientist's name.
That's a strong point.
Yeah. Back up there, thank you.
There's someone out there working on a COVID vaccine, and none of us know.
Yeah.
She is.
No one will ever know.
I don't want to know.
Name.
He shouldn't have fucking time to tell me his name.
Right? He shouldn't be on the JRE doing interviews.
The number of times that I get questions about the Goat Man on TikTok.
Who's the Goat Man?
I have to explain to people that is not actually part of anybody's, like, any culture's folklore.
Here it is. So, are you talking about the Goat Man who used to come down out of the mountains down here in Georgia with the goat?
Oh, no, you guys have a Goat Man, and Maryland has a Goat Man, and Texas has a Goat Man, and I'm like, people think it's like some Native American legend, and I'm like, not quite. Like, no, it's not quite where that comes from.
A bleeding man.
Like,
no. It's a man with a wagon led by goats who lived up in the mountains, and he'd come down to town, in the spring, get his stuff, supplies for the rest of the year, and then he'd goat on back home. Man.
He doesn't sound like much. He doesn't seem very sinister.
Well, he's not at all. People would come out and the Goat Man's coming. Yeah, everybody look.
Oh,
that's the thing. The Maryland one is like supposed to be a monster, and so is the Texas one. Yeah, no, they're asking about
old man down here in Georgia.
No, that's not the same thing I'm getting asked about.
There's pictures of him. He's a nice.
Are there any of these regional ghouls, goblins, monsters that you're like, oh, that's real, but it's a serial killer?
There's certain things that I am open to, or at least open to the possibility that there was a legitimate version of it sometime in the past. One of the most interesting ones that I've come across is the Wendigo, which is a Algonquin legend, and essentially it's built around the idea that when somebody commits an act of cannibalism out of desperation or greed, something along those lines, that they transform into this demonic entity that has a constant craving for human flesh. And the Native American legends on it vary from it's just a person who is a cannibal to it's a legitimate monster. But that's one where I'm like, I feel like this has its roots in something real.
Well, we've seen it twice in modern times. We saw the guy in Florida who attacked that man, beat him to the ground, and for 17 minutes ate his face until the police showed up.
But wasn't he on bath salts?
That's what everyone said.
He was sober.
That's what everyone said. Stone cold sober. He had trace amounts of THC from like weeks gone by. Damn, sober. Then another guy that was also eating a man's face and snarling naked, and unrelated event, different place in the country, and the police were trying to stop him, and they put the canine unit on him, and he still continues to eat the man's face. And at one point, he looks up at the police officers, growls, and says, "Kill me, I'm eating people." They eventually beat him off the man, and the man's face was eaten off, and he's in prison. These are both real stories.
They should have taken him to the hospital.
I'm sure they did.
They did. That guy in Florida, like Zach, try to find the guy in Florida, the victim, because his face looks exactly like from that Hannibal Lecter movie. Remember?
Oh yeah, when he's
Mr. Verger. That was the character's name. Where his face had been peeled off and fed to the dogs. Looks like that.
I'm gonna feed you to my dogs, and he like talks all weird. My pigs. I didn't really practice the voice before I started the character.
Oh yeah, this is what happens when a Wendigo gets you in Florida.
Oh
yeah. That's one of those legends that I'm like, I feel like this could have come out of something real. Skinwalkers are another one.
I just wanted a glimpse.
Yeah. Skinwalkers like are another one where it's they're like there is a real tradition associated with the idea of being a skinwalker. Whether or not people can actually transform into animals and travel the astral plane is up to you to decide if you want to believe it.
I've decided on that one. What I think is that they will eat your face in Florida, but no on the astral plane thing.
Yeah. So there's things like that I think probably have their roots in something real. And then of course there's the missing 411 phenomenon, which there's some of those cases where like, yeah, that person probably just got lost. But there's other ones where it's like, if everyone involved in this is telling the truth, then some weird shit happened here. And so I'm one of those people who like, I don't know that I believe in any specific version of a supernatural kind of thing, but I am open to the existence of things we don't yet understand.
I usually lean when I've got all the facts and it still just really doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I start questioning the things that were told to me by people and weren't evidentiary. Because I remember there's one where a lady lost a toddler in the woods. She had like 3 kids with her, and I think this might be from Wendigoon's channel. She's got like 3 kids with her, you know, stepped up from the ages a year each.
I think,
and one of them's real little. She turns her back for like 20 seconds. Kid's gone.
I think I was in that video.
They searched the woods, you know, like you might have been. They searched the woods.
It's the missing 411, yeah.
She goes back, like we never find this kid again. And it's like, did a stranger come in, wait until she turned her back, snatch the kid, and then sprint away to a car waiting somewhere? That's far-fetched. What's more likely to me is that mother didn't like that kid, and or maybe like through her like incompetence somehow, that kid got killed or something. And her way of it is like, oh, we lost Tommy in the woods. I'd want to know, did anybody else see Tommy in the woods that day? When's the last time anybody else saw Tommy? Are we sure he made it to the woods?
I have one of those. We did a documentary. It's called Into Thin Air, the case of Tom Messick. It's on our YouTube channel, The Lore Lodge. But we drove up to Brant Lake, which is where this guy was when he went missing. 82-year-old, I think, paratrooper veteran, but blind in one eye, had hearing damage in one ear. He and his 3 of his buddies, and I think they're like 3 of their sons, went out hunting. And as the story goes, basically they left him, they spread out in a line. You know, the older guys were basically waiting. They were the watchers while they had other people pushing game towards them. I guess that's a normal hunting technique. I don't hunt, but from what I'm told, that's perfectly normal. And they were out there for a few hours. And then when they decided to pack it in and go back to the camp, Tom Messick, the older guy, was just gone, nowhere to be found. And they fully searched the area. Nobody found anything whatsoever. And as far as the story goes, it really sounds like this guy just vanished into thin air, which is where we got the name, but with no explanation. So we drove up there because David Politis tells this story in a certain way, and we were like, we want to get the whole story. We want to really dig in, talk to people up there, go to where he went missing, you know, not just take somebody else's word for it. And a bunch of people up there told us, like, we don't think he was ever here. Like we think he like there was an accident somewhere else, or he fucked off to Cancun, you know, whatever. And we just don't think he was ever there. Or the other option was people said aliens. But yeah, there's these stories where like a lot of the times where somebody goes missing like that, it seems like the possibility is that they were never even there. And that's why the missing
part of my
person
brain
story
will
is
be
so strange.
led. It's really easy to lead me to that place to take a little leap of faith and be like, hey, you're connecting the dots here. Maybe their mob could have been, maybe they came and got him. Okay, I can see that. But like, whenever you're saying that like a child went missing, I start thinking of all the reasons people have for getting rid of children, how often it happens. It was a famous one when I was a kid, when I myself was a child.
Ramsey?
Not that one. It was the one, I think in South Carolina, where this lady said she had lost control of her car and had gone into a lake with the child strapped inside and child had drowned. But she had done it on purpose. She had just strapped her kid in the car, put the car in neutral, and rolled her car into the lake and killed the kid.
And didn't think that they would notice the car was in neutral?
Well, look, I was a child at the time.
She wanted to pass it off as an accident.
Yeah,
I get that, but like that's such an easy thing to catch.
I mean, South Carolina, the judge is like, women drivers, am I right? Get on out of here, Sally.
All right, you owe me one high five. Get the hell out of here.
It's South Carolina. So, but yeah, whenever I think that story in particular, the one where like, we brought the child here, we turned around for 30 seconds, the child went poof. We searched for an hour. We went back and got adults and teams and dogs. We surrounded the area. The helicopters hit the sky. The Amber Alerts. Every road was cut off. And you still didn't find the kid? When you tell me you brought a dog in and you lost a toddler still, all right, something happened. Somebody's lying. Dogs are really good at that. Like anybody who's got a dog, like try to put a treat in your pocket and like make it fast them, right? Like they'll track the kid down. Toddlers stink like shit. That little kid's getting drugged through the woods or walking himself, rubbing on everything, drooling, spitting, shitting. They found it. So someone took that kid.
That's one of the missing 411 profile
him.
points. That's one of the profile points for these cases is the dogs can't find them. And there's some cases where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But a lot of these cases are kind of weird.
To me, that says that they're looking in the wrong place, which means that someone has lied. The person who pointed that way is the liar. The mom is saying, look over here, when really we should go back to like look for the blood in her basement because she let the kids play down there and one of them hit the other one in the head, pushing a shelf over, and she didn't want Tommy to go down for the murder of Billy, and so she's gotten rid of Billy. Like that's so much more believable, right? Like
it's more believable that it's some sort of that it's a cover up of a murder.
The ones that get me really are the ones where like there's other witnesses who were strangers the day these people met. Like for example, like the Dennis Martin case from 1969, Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Like the kid was playing with kids from another family and his brother. Like they were all around when this happened. Like this would have had to be like 20 people involved in this conspiracy to keep their mouths shut about this kid going missing. And then, he vanishes within like 5 minutes with from out next to his brother. His dad took his eyes off him for like 20 seconds. Yeah. And then they call in the Green Berets, and the Green Berets can't find this kid, which of course has led to a ton of like conspiracy theories about like, oh my God, the Green Berets, like, they went in there because they were hunting monsters or whatever. No, they were training nearby. Like they train in that area. But
it's not exactly the same. But I've seen kids, like parents take their eyes off them for a couple seconds and disappear like 200 times. And the reason is,
but they're usually within like 50 yards.
No, please go.
Bullshit. They're miles away.
Really?
And here's the scenario. I was a lifeguard on the beach for years. And it's just that. The kids are digging a hole. Parents take their eyes off them for a second. They start walking. The kid gets disoriented and he just keeps walking and walking and walking. 100% of the time they go downwind. It was like a predictable thing. Don't even look the other way. They walked with the wind at their back. That's the way they went. And we would just get on the radio, tell every lifeguard, and invariably, like 2 miles away, 4 miles away, somebody would return a crying child to the lifeguard. And then we'd be like, oh, yeah, they're looking for one of those on 17th Street. Was it a blonde? and I've literally like 200 times I've seen this. So the idea that a kid just like vanished when the dad took the eyes off him for a second isn't foreign to me in the slightest.
Oh, yeah. Step one is easily believable. It's like all the things that come after that. It's like, all right, so they were in a park and there weren't any people there. Like parking lot's covered. It's all everybody that was in that parking lot we know. So where'd the kid go? Like there's 50 miles of wilderness that way. The highway's this way. And that's they got to go past the people to get to the highway. So where'd he go? We searched that whole 50-mile area. The dogs, the tree, the Green Berets, and like nothing. And
the
then
dogs
like,
make sense. To
and then
me.
you
Like,
start
why wouldn't
thinking
a dog
like
be able to find it.
A dog is that effective?
They have dogs. There are dogs that are bred for this. Like bloodhounds are bred to search out a specific scent. Like you give them
I'm
a
aware
scent,
of that.
They track.
I just don't know how effective a dog is. I don't know.
They're
Like
pretty effective.
I would think that they would be good at like getting a person in the woods.
If
like,
they're dealing with a fresh tracks, my understanding is that dogs are extremely effective. If
it's within like a few hours, yeah.
If it knows what the kid smells like, they give the kid's hat or something or blanket or whatever. Like, especially the kid, right? He's like falling around everywhere. It's not like he's wearing sneakers, like sprinting through the woods.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of similar childlike smells in the woods. It's dealing with like discerning. Like I feel
dogs find missing people 10% of the time. I have one experience with dogs. Our house was robbed, and the dog didn't do shit.
Well, see, that stat's not helpful though, because how often are dogs deployed when in the wrong area, right? How often is it the fault of the handler who put the dog in the wrong place? I could tell you that when dogs are used in areas where victims were actually present, they found the victim 90% of the time, but dogs are used ineffectively 90% of the time, unfortunately.
That's the problem with the statistic is like they'll bring dogs out in situations where there was never a chance the dog was ever going to find the person. Like either
square miles
rain
add up
or
quickly. If I tell you that a 5-year-old can go 6 miles, all right, 6 miles in every direction. Well, that's incalculable. No one knows what that is, but but it's a lot.
There was one kid, I'm struggling to remember his name right now. I think it was Keith Perkins, maybe, where Les Stroud from Survivor Man tried to track the same distance this kid went in the same period of time, and he couldn't do it. And they were like, and they found the kid, but the kid was so young he couldn't really describe what happened to him.
Is it pi squared? For the area of the circle?
Yeah.
IR squared?
No, it's
you just kind of get the gist.
Do you multiply the radius by pi?
Something like that, yeah.
37 square miles.
Pi r squared. Pi r squared.
Was it pi r squared? Did I get it right?
That sounds right.
That's one of the things.
Pi times the radius squared,
we've had to find the area of a fucking circle.
But yeah, there was this one kid. I'm trying to remember who it was.
It rocks, never having to do math
Keith
again,
Perkins. Keith Perkins sounds right, but he went like, it was some ridiculous amount of like distance, like 12 miles in 24 hours or something like that.
I need to get it out. If the kid walks 6 miles in any direction, which I know it's probably downwind, but whatever, it's 113 square miles.
Now, what if he could have
hard to find?
Yeah.
What if we really mean any direction though? Include the sky and the ground. Go. It's a sphere now.
Well, it's incalculable once again.
Now we're getting into real shaped things. I didn't know how to do the.
We're accounting for mole people
cubic
now.
Miles.
We're accounting. Okay, we're
113 square miles is a lot of
Thunderbirds.
area to search.
It is.
Like if you're talking about like a body in the leaves.
One of the things they thought maybe a thunderbird came and grabbed the child and flew away with her.
A thunderbird, like
yes, the mythical Native American giant birds who were not mythical at all. They existed, but you know the Indian stuff they call
you
thunder,
can't
I guess.
disprove that.
But well, those birds existed, but they come down and they take the child away. They don't exist anymore. But it was either a thunderbird or maybe one of those reptilians who live under the ground. What are those called? The Doctor Who named them.
I don't know how much I believe about what we know about animals that used to be around. After some of the mistakes they've been making with dinosaurs, pretty foot and mouth embarrassing.
Yeah,
because for a while, to keep us interested, they were finding like 6 bones and then arranging them in the absolute coolest possible way.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at this. And it's like, what? And then a few years later, oh, it's actually way smaller. Oh, actually, velociraptors aren't cool. They were the bitches of the dinosaur world. Oh,
well, that's not because of paleontology. That's because of Jurassic Park.
It's all one thing.
Yeah.
The paleontologists were like, no. And then
the paleontologists did have some things to say about the velociraptors. I will give them that.
I'm not sure if the three of you are aware of this. There's a whole movement of people. They don't think birds are real.
Well, they're not.
They think the birds are being charged
by the power lines. That's why they sit there.
No. Everybody is in quarantine, so they can charge the birds.
That's what it is.
Not heard that one?
I have literally seen illustrations. I have seen illustrations of like what the inside of a bird supposedly looks like, and it's all mechanical, like the fucking Terminator.
Yeah. What is the name of this website?
Obviously, birds are a modern invention. You don't see any old pictures of birds like from Egypt.
That's where I'm. Whenever something comes up, I don't dismiss things out of hand. I don't say, "Ha, bullshit."
I'm too smart to even look into that. No, I'll look into even the craziest things. But all I had to do was do what you just did, Woody. I went, man, I'm pretty sure they talk about birds in the Bible and like all sorts of ancient text. You know, like Da Vinci was.
Okay.
There's plenty of illustrations. I mean, look at the Egyptian hieroglyphics. You know, with the birds and on them and shit. You know, like, and then
the bones
thought,
from the dinosaurs.
Maybe they've been here the whole time, watching, waiting. And then I realized that that's absurd because I've shot many birds in real life and torn them apart with my hands and eaten them, and there were no metal bits in there.
Riddle me this: is the birds aren't real movement dinosaur denial?
I'm familiar with the dinosaur denial movement as well.
Are they the same people though? Because dinosaurs were birds, is my understanding from like
you would have to believe
every channel show.
These are not the type of people who believe in evolution. So you're going down 2 or 3 paths that they're just not going to go with. They believe that fossils are a hoax because the first dinosaur wasn't discovered until, and I'm just making a year up here, but like it was like 250 years ago when the first dinosaur was ever discovered, the first fossils, and then all of a sudden they're finding them everywhere. And they're like, you're telling me we didn't find one for all of human history until like Jimmy Popcorn did in 1797, and then he opened up a circus showing them off? Bullshit! The resin casts.
As if like before that, you know, when people stumbled upon it, they're like, "Man, this must have been one hell of a bear."
I think that's what you're looking at in ancient depictions of dragons. Is people discovered dinosaur fossils and they were like, holy fucking shit, this must have been a dragon.
Just putting the pieces together. You know, so I'll have to look more into the birds aren't real. I do like this t-shirt. I might buy it of like the old propaganda style art, but instead of like some like masked, you know, Illuminati puppeteering the media and the government, it's just a bird.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a whole birdsaren'treal.com website if birds were real.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Indisputable.
Now that is flawless logic.
What's a conspiracy theory that you actually believe? And you can't just say like the ones that have been literally proven to be like, holy shit, we really did do that Gulf of Tonkin thing. Holy crap, we really did test STDs on the Tuskegee in the Tuskegee experiments on African Americans. Like you can't come up with one of the ones that is like on Wikipedia factual. The U.S. government has admitted to already. What's one that you believe in that's still shadowy?
Man, that's tough because
lizard people.
No,
I'm joking. Okay.
I just want, so I always I hit the same well on this. I want to come up with a different one for the show, but I always hit the plane in Pennsylvania where the guy said, let's roll and went down. And I think it was shot down.
I recently watched a lot of stuff about that and how like the coroner showed up to like identify, like label the bodies or whatever, looked around for 10 minutes and was just like, I'm going home. And they're like, why? Just like, there's nothing out there. It looks like there's just a hole in the ground. There's no wreckage. Like there's just, I'm more of the thought process. Here was the conspiracy theory that was being put forward in all the material that I recently looked into in my spare time, is that it didn't even go down. They were saying that they just shot a missile into the ground and scattered a little rubbish around. And then they landed the plane somewhere and smoked all the people that were on the plane, killed them.
Jesus, that's a lot more complicated than just shooting it down.
See, but I saw the engine and stuff. Like when I did that conspiracy debunking PowerPoint thing.
You sure you found the engine?
There was, I remember the photo of the engine and I remember how it hit the dirt. And one of my points was how scattered the plane was, how parts of it were here. And
I could have been lied to last week.
Speaking of that bit we did a while back, Woody, we need to do that again, like the structured conspiracy thing. Let's do that next week. That'd be fun.
I'm just doing the same one again.
Just doing the same one. But I remember how fucking funny it was that Woody had a PowerPoint and like you would make a point and then authoritatively be like, next slide. And next slide.
I wanted you to follow along.
That was really
it's like that scene in JFK. He's back
that's a
and to the left, back and to the left.
I don't know what happened with the JFK thing, but I do believe it was more complicated than just Oswald doing that.
Yeah, I think
like there were more people in play. I think
who did it. I don't know who did it either, but I think there's definitely a conspiracy at play there. You know, I think
anytime I'm sorry, I cut you off. Anytime there's a president, he's going to have a lot of people who are against him. You know, then there's of course the other political side, and in his case, there was like mafia and the Cuba and the Cubans and a bunch of, you know, you could just say Trump right now. Does anyone want to kill Trump? Oh, well, surely. Lots of people do. You know, he's in a couple of trade wars. There's motivation there. He's unpopular with the blue team. There's motivation there. You know, you could look all over and find people who haven't acted as far as I know, but good.
Sure. Oh shit! I just forgot my conspiracy theory. The thing that I think that there have been previous civilizations that were advanced that got wiped out in the past.
Oh, really? How advanced are you talking about here?
Because like they got to the stage of like large stone structures and organized society, like Egyptian style level organized government.
Wiped out an epidemic.
Well, that book that that I've read from the Graham Cochran guy, he suggests that it was the a comet strike that happened. I want to say 14,000 years ago.
I was afraid you were about to say pandemic.
No, it was it triggered this geologically proven period of global cooling called the Younger Dryas, where like a lot of the major animals in the world went extinct, and he thinks that was the cataclysm that like swept the earth clean of like whatever civilizations existed.
Undesirables.
It's possible.
Yeah, so that's the one that I think is. I've just watched.
Why are there no
listen?
Okay.
I it might not be a conspiracy, but it's more of like a science, like a astrology conspiracy, where there is this this barrier civilizations will reach, and then they'll just go extinct.
The great filter, right?
The great filter, right? Yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah.
I think that's
dude. That's really interesting.
I've never heard of that.
Oh no, I wish I could. No. It's incredibly fascinating. If someone who understood it more completely explained it to you would be cool. But the core, Kyle, you want to take a shot at it? It sounds like you do.
I believe that the core part of it is there's this question, and it is, why are we not, with our radio telescopes and our listening devices, able to detect intelligent life that's at least able to send out a radio signal or a laser signal of some kind? And so the great filter is the answer to that. It's all of these filters that not just a society but a life form has to evolve through to get to that point. And war and plague, or all of the four horsemen are part of that filter. And it's really interesting theory. Like I like to go down those YouTube.
The question is that filter that so pretty much you're going into the right direction. The one with the radio waves is even more complicated because us as a civilization might only use radio waves for a few hundred years or 1,000 years, which in the scale of the universe is like nothing, right? So it'll just see it for 1,000 years and then you won't see it. But pretty much the question is, why are we still alone in the universe? Right? I feel like this is like an educational
even our planet has gotten to the point where we send satellites out past Pluto, outside our solar system. You would think that. So there's one possibility is that we're first, that we're the most advanced society to have ever existed. But as a numbers game, that seems improbable, right? That we're literally the most advanced society to have ever existed in the universe. That seems improbable. There's so many planets.
You may have touched on it. To have ever existed, no. To still exist, yes.
Right. So
wait. There's different questions.
Well, right. So if what I said, we are the most to have ever existed, then there isn't a great filter. We're first, but that seems unlikely. So
no. That's incorrect. So the thing about the great filter, you asked for someone to be able to explain it, guys. I'm trying to explain it here. Okay. So the great filter is the filter that if a civilization gets to a point, they go extinct. And this could be, there's tons of different theories what it could be. It could be, for example, star goes supernova, star blows up, whatever star, we cannot leave our solar system in time. That's a possibility. Another possibility is that we'll never be able to leave our Milky Way galaxy. But some other stuff that's even more interesting is that it could be that humans won't be interested anymore in 1,000 years to try and explore. For example, if VR and AR and all those things, let's say we create the Matrix and we can live inside of our simulation, why would we still want to explore if you can explore the entire universe within, right? Anyways.
Yeah, I was headed to that before I was cut off.
Okay, wait.
No, so there is a possibility that. Oh my gosh, stop it! You took the floor from me, told me I was wrong, and then I wasn't. So there is a possibility that there is no filter and that we're first, but that's improbable, right? So then we're headed to where Queb was saying that there is a filter. And what is that filter? Is that filter that you lose interest? It could be that filter is there's an aggressive society out there, and anytime they find them, they eliminate them. So it seems like there's none. And once we do make contact with someone, it's the end for us. Go on.
It's also possible that we've already passed the filter, right? So if you look back at history, the amount of mass extinctions, we've survived, the amount of like this, the whole coronavirus situation could have wiped everything out, right? I mean, it didn't, and it probably won't, but it could have been it. So it's like, did we pass it already, or are we going towards it, or are there multiple filters?
There's definitely multiple filters, right? There's the zoo hypothesis, right? The galactic zoo hypothesis, and
what is this?
These are interesting conspiracy theories.
Wait, we're a part of a zoo where they took
that there are intelligent alien life forms out there, and they just put up some sort of subspaced road sign out there that said "Humans ahead, don't contact," and they're just allowing us to evolve like fucking microbes in a petri dish, and they're not going to interfere. They're just watching.
It's like that South Park where they get canceled, and the producers of the show, the Glorksians or whatever, are like, "Oh no, we put everything on Earth to see how it would go. You think that's how the entire universe works? No, there's a planet of deer, a planet of Asians, a planet of birds."
The planet of Asians.
That's the line was.
Everybody's just crashing into each other all day.
There's a few ways to look at it. There's a few ways to look at it. So you can say, all right, well, this is a tribe in the Amazon, and we will not lay contact with them. We just let them live and this and that. Sometimes they see a plane fly over and they're like, oh, what's that? And that's the equivalent of us humans seeing UFOs, right? Mm-hmm. That's one possibility. The other one is that these aliens are so much smarter than humans that they'll look at us and go, what's the point of us communicating with an ant? Right?
Yeah.
What's the point? They won't ever understand us.
I hate that one. I don't buy into that one because I think that because there are tons of humans who go and study ants and spend their whole fucking life staring at ants and learning about ants. And every time I see a Reddit GIF of like a line of ants walking next to a line of termites, and all the ants are like bucked up, like, don't fuck with the ant line. And all the termites are like bucked up, like, don't you fuck with the termite line. I'm like, fascinating. They're in a standoff while the workers carry the food and do their fucking colony shit. And then the workers are at the corner, like, don't you fuck with our shit. Don't you fuck with our shit, termite. I'm fascinated by that. So I think that no matter how advanced they are, and how inferior we are technologically, evolutionarily speaking.
Kyle won me over. I was anti-Kyle at the start of that. He turned me around. I want to see some ant termite fights now.
It's cool shit.
I'm going to defend this. I need to defend this. So now the question is, are ants able to recognize humans observing them? And I don't think so. They might see, hey, there's something there, but they might not understand what that is.
And they don't know they're part of like a David Attenborough special.
When you break out the magnifying glass and torture them, they start to get the message.
Yeah, but then they just do that cool ant thing and just reevaluate the line and keep going. Ants are tight. Yeah, man, Kyle, that is a really good comparison. I thought the same thing.
We're fascinated by those things. Like how many nature documentaries are there? When I see the one about bugs, I'm like, ooh, I like these. Like I can only watch the penguins do their shit so many times, but these ants, I don't know anything. Oh, a leaf cutter ant. What? They don't even eat the leaves? They just feed them. What? They're not eating the leaves. They're taking the leaf cuttings, putting them down in the colony and growing some sort of mold on them or something. Yeah, fungus on them. And then they eat the fungus. These are farmer ants, not leaf-eating ants. I had no idea. And there's
a lot of interesting stuff. If I see two snails fucking, which I don't think they even fuck. I think one lays eggs and the other comes around. I'm not sure. I'm like, oh, that's how they do it? I'm going to check this out. If I saw two wildebeests making babies, if I saw 2 chickens, well, they don't fuck, but if I saw 2 chickens hypothetically having sex, then that would be a thing, or dolphins or whatever. Why wouldn't they check out our wars, our reproduction? Those things are inherently interesting.
I think they're checking it out.
One of the things that's for sure though is like, so one of the problems with them even hiding themselves from us is there I don't remember what the scale is called, but there's this scale of like civilization levels. It's like, oh, this is a tier 1 civilization.
Is it based on how much sun energy they harness?
That's where we're ending up. It's a technological advancement scale, and up at the top is what we believe will eventually happen, and that is when they're harnessing the complete power of a star with a Dyson sphere, and the whole thing is like, we're not seeing any Dyson spheres.
So it's called the Kardashev scale. A type 1 civilization, also called a planetary civilization, can use and store all of the energy available on its planet. A type 2, called a stellar civilization, can use and control energy at the scale of its stellar system. And a type 3 civilization, also called a galactic civilization, can control energy at the scale of its entire host galaxy.
Yeah, so the idea is that
we're like level 0 then.
Yeah, we're level 0 there.
Point something. We've got solar panels.
7.
Dude, that's so dumb. That the guy who made that scale, I closed the window up at Kadushev or whatever. You could have bullshitted a couple levels below where we already achieved,
right?
So that we felt a little better about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to come in on level 0. Like, we've done shit. We should be
like Randy Marsh measuring his
0.7, guys. We're almost
the adjusted penis size is
the yaw.
Our adjusted Kardashev scale is a 4.7. 4.7.
We're a level 4.7 civilization.
Queb, did you say we're 0.7? Do you know something that, or did we just sit making a joke?
0.7.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, this scientist, I don't know his first name. I know his last name's Dyson. He came up with he theorized that you could completely enclose a star in a mechanism that would take 100% of its light energy, or there are lesser ways to do it. You could just surround it with satellites, like thousands and thousands, or maybe start out with 1 and then 2 and then 3. But you'd surround the sun at close range with these satellites that are beaming the energy back to your planet, and the idea is that we're like, well, eventually that just makes sense that you would need that kind of power source, and that would be the easiest way to do it. We should be able to see those though, because we can detect gravity by the way it bends light with our radio telescopes, right?
Yeah.
So it should be almost like, in the same way we detect black holes, we should be able to detect Dyson spheres.
It would be tough, though.
No.
Go ahead.
No. You're going into the right direction, but unless I'm wrong, we can detect the drop in light intensity. So when we look at a star, and all of a sudden, the light intensity drops because, for example, a planet goes in front of it, then we know, okay, there has a planet, it has another planet, there's another planet. But if all of a sudden a star starts dimming halfway, and it starts dimming more and then more and more and more, then we know, okay, hey, there is a possibility that there's a civilization over there which has created a Dyson sphere.
But that's just if we are literally viewing, and of course we're looking back in time because of the speed of light, but that's just in case we're looking at a partial Dyson sphere or mid-construction of a full Dyson sphere. I'm describing like a scenario in which the Dyson sphere has been there for millennia, right?
But then the gravitational waves will just pass through. The gravity just doesn't care there's a Dyson sphere there.
Everything with mass has gravity. So the Dyson sphere
so it would have an enormous amount of mass. Not only the star's mass, but the Dyson sphere would even add to that, and it would bend the light of the stars behind it, and we could detect that. And there would also be a gravitational area out there that has planets rotating it, which would be funny for them to. It would be like, what are they rotating?
So what you're saying is like it would be like a black hole, but it wouldn't be as strong as a black hole. It would be like in between, just a little bit stronger than a star.
It would be.
Is this guy Dyson a scientist, or was he just like?
He's the vacuum guy.
He's the vacuum guy.
He's the vacuum guy.
Suck it out. Have you ever experienced a $550 vacuum cleaner? Now you can say you have. It's like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and buy a fucking Hoover, bitch.
Dirt devil. Yeah, that stuff's really fascinating to me. I love watching those documentaries about space, and I like going down the YouTube rabbit hole. I find that that's even more enjoyable because they're not selling you anything. There's no commercial breaks. It's just often a professor or a physicist of some kind, and he's really breaking things down on a marker board.
What is a conspiracy or esoteric thing you've looked into? Kind of a two-part question. One that you went into thinking it was total bullshit and maybe you got flipped a little bit, and then maybe another you went into kind of convinced and then you unconvinced yourself through the research. Or if either one's better, just go.
So when I was incarcerated and I was reading books and stuff, and prisoners would come up to me, this is back in almost 20 years ago now, prisoners would come up to me and say, you didn't get away with your ecstasy trafficking because you never paid off the cops and the politicians, and don't the CIA brings the coke in. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, these guys are just disgruntled because they're in here and making this stuff up. And now I've written a whole war on drugs series of books documenting everything I was told. I wrote American Made about Barry Seal, the pilot that was bringing the coke into Arkansas for George H.W. Bush. And Bill Clinton was providing the state security, the state troopers. And because Clinton played ball with the CIA, he got awarded the White House. And back then, Clinton's brother Roger got busted buying coke for Bill. And he got busted on the video saying to the undercover cop, "My brother's got a nose like a vacuum cleaner." So you can't argue that conspiracy is not true anymore.
Yeah, that the Clintons and the CIA, I guess. When was this? When was this period? Because I know.
So George H.W. Bush, Oliver North, Felix Rodriguez, these were the CIA guys. They were bringing the coke in. Barry Seal was flying the weapons down to Nicaragua. And then they were bringing the coke back in to Arkansas. And it was all going very well until two young boys were found dead on the railway tracks who had stumbled upon the operation. They'd been executed, laid side by side on the railway tracks, and it was made to look like the train had run over them. And one of the dads worked on the train tracks, and he knew that was impossible. The fact that the blood was not fresh was a heads up to the emergency service that arrived on the scene. But what did the Clintons do? They brought in, what's his name? Fahmy Malek, the coroner, a coroner who helped Bill's mum get out of a situation. And Fahmy Malek's verdict was the boys had smoked so much weed, they'd gone into a psychosis and laid side by side on the railway tracks, and the train had run over them. And to this day, Linda Ives, the mum of one of them, is still campaigning for justice for her kid. She's confronted Bill Clinton. He's blown her off over the years. And my book, Clinton, Bush, and CIA Conspiracies, it's the stories of four people whose lives weave together, and they include Linda Ives, Gary Webb, and Kiki Camarena, the guy who Narcos Mexico is about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Wait, isn't he the guy who was tortured to death horribly?
Yes. Well, I knew a pilot for the Sinaloa cartel who was involved in things back then. He was an American guy, and he worked both sides. He's dead now. That's the only reason I'm authorized to tell these stories, because he died a few years ago. He said, "Don't ever say any of this stuff while I'm alive." And he told me that he did work for both sides. He worked for the cartel and he worked for the feds. And when he never murdered anyone when he was working for the cartel. He only murdered people when he was working for the US government. And he explained to me how it all worked. So from the very beginning, where the prisoners were telling me that this conspiracy exists and I wasn't believing them. Mm-hmm. Now I'm speaking to an actual cartel pilot who knew all about the CIA and the deals the cartels have with the US government and the weapons they buy in exchange. So here's how it's set up. You'll have one cartel, for example, El Chapo, who's working with the Mexican government. And they're buying all these weapons from America to fight the war on drugs. But those weapons are applied to the rival cartels. So the Mexican government can say, "Yeah, America, we're fighting the war on drugs. Look at all these raids we're making." But they're wiping out El Chapo's enemy. But it gets to the point where El Chapo gets so powerful, the government has to hand him over to America. So the cartel leaders are fall guys. Most of that money from the cocaine sales ends up permanently in the hands of the Mexican government, the heads of the army, the heads of the police. It doesn't matter who they arrest, Chapo, Escobar, Cali, these guys just come and go. They are the bogeymen in the war on drugs. Most of the money is going to the biggest mafia in the world, which is the politicians. And from the early parts of the Mexican cartel in the 80s, the president of Mexico, he retired to a castle in Ireland with $500 million net worth, which could not be explained the source of. And I believe that's where he lives to this day.
I mean, if you want to,
really nice.
If you're trying to escape as a former Mexican drug lord, a castle in Ireland is like the furthest away you could get.
So what you're saying is this guy's dope as fuck. Is that the core?
Taylor,
that his fucking castle's awesome.
Taylor, when an investigator shows up at his castle, what's the accent he uses to convince them he's a good old local Irish boy?
You used to run drugs. He's like, drop a point to your Witcher. He just does that. No, I'm just trying to, just enjoy, I don't know, the color green. What the fuck is going on here? Cheese, is that a thing? Like that is insane. So, and it's easy. Like I know because I like the HW stuff is wild. It's easy to just forget because like when someone becomes president, it's like you think of them like, oh, that was that president, and you don't think about like that leading up to it. Like HW was like an absolute garbage piece of shit head of the CIA for a long time, like actively taking place and destabilizing South American governments, moving coke. He helped create, I think, like he was, I think, ahead of the CIA when they began that like fucking over black people with crack in inner city areas, or maybe it was the guy before him. But like
Clinton and him ramped it up, and George H.W. Bush was asked at a private dinner, how on earth can you be running this war on drugs while bringing the drugs in? How can you get away with that? And Bush's answer was, it's so far removed from the possibilities of what may be happening in the Americans' minds, no one would ever believe it were possible.
Yeah. Like if you told someone like, oh, the U.S. is assisting the cartels in moving drugs because it's financially beneficial to them, you'd be like, no, nah. and then like that would be it. Oh, that guy's a kooky conspiracy theorist. He seems to think that these giant multi-billion-dollar international businesses have shady shit going on.
Yeah, and Clinton...
These illegal businesses.
And Clinton, like I said, who his brother got busted buying coke for him, he ended up locking a record amount of non-violent drug users, including women, hundreds of thousands of them, to fill the private prisons. So the hypocrisy is absolutely staggering.
At the time, there was this like culture war against these, what they call them, super predators or something like that. And the idea was that,
remember the Clinton?
That's the Hillary.
It was
thing.
Hillary, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, there was this thought process that like people were going to prison, learning how to be very good prisoners, teaching each other, lifting weights, and they were coming out like jacked and scarier and better trained and becoming better prisoners. And that's 3 strikes you're out kind of got employed. And at being tough on crime was a very politically popular position to take, and all of America was lined up. I was lined up. I think I was wrong, but that's what I believed at the time.
Yeah,
because
it's easy to get most of the population lined up on stuff. Like when you look back and you realize stuff like that, it's like
for crime.
Crime.
Who's
for child pornography? No one's for that, but they use it to launder censorship. People who consume it aren't against it, but like they launder in internet bills in the modern day where, oh, you don't want to be tracked with your real name and shit? Well, you must want pedophiles to win. And it's like, well, no, just because you can't vote against the Child Online Protection Act without seeming like a monster, even if that act has a bunch of shit in there that's about tracking people, Yeah. So they can always launder what they want through the media.
Yeah, and the media was showing, all these crack monsters and crack babies. And also, they portray that prisoners are just pedophiles, rapists, serial killers. But when I got there, I saw the average arrest was a young person with a bit of weed getting like a 2 to 5 year sentence. And if you look at the stats, at the peak of the war on drugs, the highest arrest category was weed possession, almost 1 million arrests a year. Crazy. They go in as potheads, they become heroin addicts, they become Nazis, they've got criminal records, they don't stand a chance, their lives are ruined. They give them $50 on the door, they say, have a nice day when they're getting released, and they come right back. As soon as they come back, $60,000 of taxpayers' money to the prison by design.
a regular person of the public, I'm talking about me at that time, felt like they were in there for armed robbery. They were in there for mugging. They were in there for like, I don't know, beating up nice people who didn't do anything.
Because that's what the news, like I remember, like the news isn't like this anymore. But I remember growing up, the news being a lot about like the 8 crimes that happened tonight.
Are you kidding? That's exactly what the news is now.
Oh, well, to me, it's about politics. Maybe
I guess I watch I think what it is I watch cable news instead of local news now. But growing up, we had local news. I didn't have CNN growing up. I think we had the channel, but nobody knew how to dial it in. So we'd watch 4, 7, and 13 and 21 or whatever our local stations were, and you'd hear about the crimes of the night. And so like those were the people you thought of when you thought criminal. You thought the guy wearing a mask who's going to beat you up at night and rob you or break into your house or rape or murder.
Bad boys, what you going to do?
Dude,
what you going to do when they come?
You imagine the most intense, heartless killers.
Will Smith led me wrong. I watched that movie and I took it to be a historical documentary. Conspiracy theory is a tentpole topic around here. What other conspiracy theory do you believe in, Tucker?
See, I said that without really thinking about other conspiracy theory I believe in, but now I believe. All right, here's not so conspiracy. I don't believe in aliens, but I do believe in the vast unreported amount of technologically advanced stuff that every government that is capable of producing has locked away and has been doing since the dawn of time. And I firmly believe that every single UFO on that, like all of this shit, Area 51, whatever, it is just simply it's like the SR-71, like tech 10, 20 years in front of the future that they're just never going to let out. Like that conspiracy theory that came to mind.
I agree with that one mostly. I do believe that there are aliens. I just don't think they've been here. I'm like 95% sure that they've been here.
There's 100% people or aliens that exist somewhere. It's just they're not landing here and building the pyramids.
Yeah, the universe is infinite. It doesn't make sense for there not to be.
Impossible. Yeah.
But I want to believe like that old X-Files tagline. I really do want to believe because it'd be so cool if there were aliens that were visiting us. And if they had visited us, and
we're like the fucking zoo. We're like the orangutans at the zoo. They're like, let's stop at Earth. We'll check out Earth, and then you can feed them a little bit, and then we'll get back in the car and we'll go over to like.
Daddy, I want to fuck one in the ass. All right, Billy, you can fuck one in the ass. Sure.
Earth is just Jeffrey Epstein's island for aliens. Debate me.
Oh.
When you're right, you're right.
I need an Advil.
Taylor tried convincing us. Are you familiar with Helen Keller?
Yeah, of course.
Taylor tried convincing us that Helen Keller was a fraud about a month or so ago.
Not that she was an intentional fraud.
She was essentially a ventriloquist dummy for her assistant helper, the miracle worker. What was her name? Anne Sullivan.
Anne Sullivan.
Did you know Anne Sullivan was blind, Taylor?
Yeah, not deaf. Got my notes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was hoping that would.
God, you've got pages. Those pages. That single space, is it printed front and back? Please tell me.
It's not front and back. But there was a lot more data that I could have had, and I had to keep it succinct.
Keep your lies to yourself.
Kyle says Taylor tried to convince us. I say Taylor made a compelling point. I went on the Dick Show with Dick Masterson. His audience thought it was a very compelling point as well. When I presented it.
I want a poll.
Dude, I will.
And look, I'm
going to win this one.
Taylor has pages, right? Taylor's pages. I have a singular piece of evidence. Video of the fucking genius speaking without a hand up her ass, moving her mouth intelligibly, like carrying on a very intelligent conversation.
It was apparently more than probably wants a cracker.
You watch the video of
I'm not watching
what's her name again? Helen Keller.
You're fucking horse shit nonsense. Look at this video from 1904.
Look at the strong evidence came from.
No, all of mine is look at it. It's typed.
Case closed.
You'd be the same guy. You're like, wow, look at this strong man from 1894. Can you believe no one to this day has lifted a cow and heaved it 30 yards? It's like, yeah, of course not. Of course not. Yeah, all those old records, that's all made up. Helen Keller, where are the blind deaf people talking now? I've said it so many times. Where are they?
Watch the video. I didn't say that.
No. Wait.
You're saying she's a secret retard.
Yes.
I'm saying secret genius. So I want to poll secret retard or secret genius. It's A or B, folks. And you've heard all of Taylor's evidence. My singular piece of evidence is the fucking video of her speaking. And she's literally saying, I wish I could speak better so that I could share my thoughts and feelings.
Wait, is that what she literally said? Or did she say, I
knew that.
Did she do that? Okay, Kyle, I will say this. Prepare to get blown the fuck out in this poll. Dude, secret retard it's going to be a waterfall into secret retard. Let's do that poll on the subreddit.
Do the poll.
Was it not said that she went deaf and blind after a fever, so she was hearing and seeing, so she had the basis for all this communication?
At the age of 19 months, though, and the current prognosis in the year 20. Yes, the current prognosis in the year 2020 for someone who goes blind and deaf is that they are not going to be able to communicate.
Do you know what they call the movie, Taylor?
The Miracle Worker.
Do you know why they call it that?
Yeah, they should have called it
miracle.
Made up.
God's
they don't call
saying
it
that.
They don't call it the thing just about anybody can do in this certain circumstance. Worker. They call it the miracle worker.
Yeah.
Is there a documented case of somebody who was both deaf and blind before 2 years that has
miracles don't happen all the time? If they do, they call it ordinary game on ice.
No, see,
they would just call it the Olympic hockey game that time we won.
No, thank you so much, Tucker. I needed someone else on my side here. Yeah,
No, I was just asking. I wasn't on anybody's side. I'm just asking for more empirical data. What is there any documented example? Okay, Taylor.
There is one documented example prior to her. Prior to her.
Oh, never mind.
And even less reliable. Even less reliable. There's no modern day ones. No modern day ones.
If there's not anybody in the last 30 years, I believe Taylor, because if with modern tech we have no ability to teach somebody, I don't care about how improbable it is. It's just not going to happen. Like, we have all of the tools at our disposal. We can literally rebuild eyeballs. I don't know if that's true or not, but
we're getting close. We can like grow them on
close.
Yeah.
Secret genius. Secret genius.
No,
watch the video of the girl speaking and then tell me that it's all a sham.
Don't believe your lying eyes and ears. No, it's obviously, that was a little pun, but yeah, she's retarded. Absolutely. There's so many more points here that I could regale Tucker with, but I don't want to.
No, we don't need to rehash.
We don't want to rehash.
I really wish
I'm already on your side.
I wish you had just as vehemently defended my theory that there was no Holocaust. Like that would have.
What the hell,
dude? There's no punishment for saying.
I don't have time to completely disprove the Holocaust. We've only got another 2.5-3 hours here. But if you want to talk later, Tucker, I'll convince you. Don't worry.
Nope, I'm good.
I've got some documents that I'm going to need you to download.
I'll not be doing that. That's
pop on his stream and cover it.
Yes, I would like to come on your stream. Wait till there's a lot of people in there, though. You doing a sponsored stream anytime soon? That'd be a good night to do it.
Jesus.
Yeah, well,
let's see what this stream's brought to you by Logitech. Now let's talk about the Jews.
Oh man, a couple jokes there, can't say, but when a good one pops in your head.
Oh, are the Jews silencing you again?
Just all day, every day, man. I can't get my.
It's about who you can't criticize.
And that's Helen Keller. Apparently, she's ruling us from the grave. That dumb bitch.
You've got reams of documents over there mocking a deaf, retarded girl.
She'll never know.
Blind girl who was not retarded.
Wait, so you admit that...
Well, she was retarded, but then
the pole swings this way.
But then she was unretarded by Anne Sullivan.
You can't once retarded, always retarded.
I don't co-sign that.
I didn't know.
I don't know either.
I think a better.
We know some people who have recovered.
The needle can never go further than the gauge allows it.
Yes.
And if you're on the needle is on the spectrum. You can't get off of it.
Yeah, and she didn't even have a.
Can we watch the video of her speaking, or is that some copyright shit? I mean, it's in black and white.
It's copyrighted.
It's copyrighted by the Helen Keller Foundation.
I don't know if it's copyrighted.
I just went to a different section of my YouTube channel. I have like hundreds of complaints against other
Same
people that I
wavelength.
could file.
Oh, nice.
YouTube
Start
is-
locking them down, Woody. It'd be fun.
Let's get off
a
of
lot of our
Holocaust
PKA
denial.
clips we never go after that.
What are we doing?
Dude, you know what I want to
All I
do?
need you to do, go to Helen Keller Speaks Out on YouTube. 7 million views. All right. It's from 1954.
How
This
many
is the fucking
dislikes?
dark ages. You want to know the like-dislike ratio? I'm
Yeah.
sure it's
That's 'cause people feel bad.
it looks like they're disabled, frankly.
Just like her.
Saw that coming too.
That was quick. There's another one here. Yeah. 20,000 to 300 on the second one of her talking. And then the third highest ranked video when you search Helen Keller talking is Taylor proves Helen Keller was a fraud.
And how many views does that one have?
No,
280,000.
See? 280,000 people on my side. Click on my video and see what the dislike ratio is, because my dislike ratio, not disabled, totally abled.
How do you know?
19,000 to 500.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, dominating. 500 losers in there, but who cares? Yeah. See, don't watch his bullshit video. Watch my video, and you'll be.
You've already seen his video. We all know his
We're really
cruel and
glossing
evil
over
take.
You got over 250,000 people watching you disprove that Helen Keller was not like
Just that clip of it. That's not even a show.
Why even attack Helen Keller? Like, what is like?
Well,
like,
we do this reoccurring
it
thing
made
where
me
we
laugh.
You were like this unproblematic part of human history that seems to have a positive thing. I just gotta prove it. Gotta prove it to everyone. It's just a fraud.
Let me ask you this,
God.
Taylor. Let me ask you this, Taylor, and be honest. I swayed you a little bit with the Holocaust, right?
I'm not dipping my toe into that pool.
That's a yes, folks. That's a fucking yes. That's
Not
a
at
yes, but I might have to work a real job at some point in my life, and so I'm not dipping my toe. Woody, I swayed you a little bit with the Holocaust, right?
Oh, not at all. Hey, Taylor.
What
just
do
so
you have to lose? Bastards.
What do I have to
It's
I want
there's
another
nothing
poll.
to
I
lose
want another
agreeing with
poll.
me.
I want another poll. Who did I sway with the Holocaust talk? Because I gave some legitimate facts and figures.
I would
If you have-
advise not having a Holocaust deniability poll on your Reddit.
Not
Taylor,
I just fully advise that you do a poll.
This needs to be
I
put
want to
out
know
there.
who agrees with me that the Holocaust was overblown. The numbers were greatly exaggerated.
Kyle, this helps you. Hold on. So, since 1959, Tommy was also deaf and blind and learned to communicate like Helen Keller. Ronnie Merjaka was also deaf and blind and
What's
learned
Tommy's
to communicate.
last name? I don't trust a one name.
Tommy made up.
I could look it up.
Tommy fictitious.
I don't care.
Tommy fabricated.
Yeah, Tommy fabricated.
Okay,
He's
all
from
right.
Sicily.
I got a little quick. Tommy is actually a fictitious character from the Who's pinball player.
Yes,
wait.
I'm winning this poll. I'm winning this poll.
I should have read more carefully. Haben Gurma is a deaf-blind person that graduated from Harvard Law School, actually.
Is that her name?
In
It sounded like when she said it.
2019. In 2019, Haben Gurma, Harvard Law graduate, deaf-blind.
Woody, is that her name or how she says it?
Heaven Gobla.
And then, that's the last one. Not
When
true.
did, no, but
Oh my
no,
God! Can we
again,
get a deaf-blind person as a guest?
How are they going to get on Discord? Anyways,
They
I
don't
have.
actually have to be deaf and blind. They just have to be real good at pretending.
I need to know. I want to know my only stipulation to believe Taylor or not believe Taylor relies on the fact that both of these people have to have been deaf and blind around the same age as Helen Keller was at 19 months and learned some level of communication that would put them on par with Helen Keller, which I believe is like pseudo conversational.
Yeah, and I actually know like the kind of stuff you're talking about, Woody. That what Tucker just hit the nail on the head. It's about the age that it happens and the extent to which the blindness and deafness is total. For Helen Keller, total. If apparently like if you're able to form words and you can understand language and stuff, like so if you go blind and deaf at age 15, you have the requisite
For
to
all
be
you
more
know,
understanding.
Helen Keller didn't have total deaf and blindness, and she just hammed
No,
it
that's
up
what I
for
was going to
sympathy.
say. Who, for all you know, like maybe we didn't have the correct testing. Like if he's like, how many fingers am I holding up? And Helen Keller can only see like dark.
I think that lying bitch wasn't very disabled at all. And she just pretended to be disabled to lower expectations.
He's like, I don't want to talk to
That's
y'all.
right, too.
Wow, what a genius!
She's also a telepath.
Can you get her to talk when you're not holding a lighter under her toes? No, this is our training session. Do you need that rider's crop to hit her in the top of the hands?
It's like a circus. The tricks are pretty awesome at the show, but the training behind the scenes is dreadful.
It's horrific. It's just horrific. Have we talked
He
about
seems
Kennedy on the show, like you with us?
Never.
I know the
in-depth
show's
at
talked
all.
about Kennedy, like everybody has, but have we ever had the Kennedy talk with you?
I think it got passively mentioned on the episode that Woody wasn't here for.
I've
when, like Harley and everyone was on.
I remember watching.
I don't think we talked much though. I'd like to. I don't know too much about it.
Did Oliver Stone make the movie, the JFK movie? Is that who made it?
Yes, yeah.
I remember watching
Remember Your
that.
King. Yeah, that's the Oliver Stone movie.
I remember that. Anyone who's never seen JFK, you should watch it. It's a tremendous film, great cast, got our boy Kevin Spacey in there. And I remember at the end of it, there's something.
His boys, Kevin
Spacey.
It's got your boy. Part of the gang, so to speak. Yeah. We go way back.
Kyle is president of the Kevin Spacey Stan Club.
I like that our boys are like Kevin Spacey, and I don't know who's the fucking guy who didn't kill himself. Epstein.
Oh, Epstein.
He is not our boy. I don't know.
He was just a fun-loving playboy who liked to have a good time.
Jesus.
Is what I've heard. Is what I've heard. I mean, if that wasn't it, then surely all that information with Ghislaine's list, they would have looked into it, right?
Yeah, that's what the guard at the penitentiary told me. I don't know what else is going on.
That's what the guy who wasn't in prison there, the former cop with his pit bulls and his 22-inch arms, that's what he told you before the cameras went out.
With his magical camera racing capabilities.
At the end of JFK, though, there's a part where, I don't know, there's some text on the screen maybe, and they're like, they give a date in roughly 2020 when they're going to open these files and they'll be available for the public. And then that came, right? Or you're probably like, oh yeah, where's this file? They like pushed it forward again. They pushed it forward again. They're like, nah, we changed our mind.
No shit.
Kick the can down the road. I remember my dad looked at me. My dad, I guess, didn't think he'd live to 2020 at the time. He was like, make sure that you look into that. Like back then, I remember it so well. Like 30 years ago. Like, make sure you look into that.
I want Wendigoon to give
even
pills
even more. And so the JFK files are a whole thing. There's like hundreds of pages of declassified CIA info that you mentioned. My last video about the vampire attacks, part of it actually came from the JFK files. So it's like this book of information, and then what they did is they took stuff like JFK, stuff relating to MLK, Nazi groups in South America, and they released like a few pages and then redacted the rest. And it's like, that'll be another 10, 20 years. Like, all right, so they acknowledge it exists, but they're like, these 40 pages? No. What 24? When we're all dead, that's when you can look at it.
And then the people alive then will be like, nah. Let's push that. Let's kick that can a little further down the road. I haven't.
And then Kyle tells his son, like, you look out for that whenever that comes around.
Well, I don't know if it's true, but it's right here. Zach wrote it. White House delays the release of secret JFK assassination records, citing COVID-19.
Damn,
that sounds like them.
That's dangerous.
That
you can't be reading that on your phone.
Hey, that's what killed JFK.
I've heard it's a good. I've heard the JFK movie is good and entertaining, but like, I don't even know what their claim is for who did it in the JFK movie, like CIA or something, I guess, based on the redacted thing. But we know for sure that that's not the full story in that movie.
Correct.
Like,
yeah,
if the people out there were powerful enough to kill JFK, they're powerful enough to kill someone trying to tell the story of how JFK was killed. You know. Like they wouldn't allow a movie like that to come out if it was really spilling like state secret beans, you know.
There's a lot of weird stuff with the Cubans and with Oswald. I've never thought the mob stuff was particularly compelling, but the Cuban stuff, the all the CIA stuff with Oswald, and then there's that one guy who's all the Ruby stuff is really weird.
Jack Ruby.
Yeah,
he was in the mob or mob connected, right?
Yeah, he did. Well, he was more of like an enforcer for random stuff. Like mob connection, yes, but he wasn't in the mob. He wasn't like a big member or anything.
Yeah, the whole thing's wild. And then that shot that he supposedly made. I don't know.
And then they killed his brother.
After firing 3 shots out of a bolt action in like 2 seconds. Like that guy had sleight of hand on up there.
What's hard to do, and like if you've never like tried to do it in real, if you've only played video games with scoped guns, like shooting the gun and then chambering a new round and then putting it back up to your ear and getting that sight picture and then kind of getting settled into it, like that. It seems quick, but it's precious seconds that you need if you're trying to shoot a guy driving away from you in a fucking Lincoln or whatever.
Is the claim 3? They say it was 3 bolt action shots.
Yes, 3 bolt action shots out of a 6.5 Carcano rifle. As he was driving away, fired in the time span of a little over 3 seconds, if I remember correctly. So the first shot was a miss. It skipped off the pavement and hit a guy who was walking down the street. The second shot is the magic bullet. That's the one that supposedly, hold on, let me think. I'm JFK. It hit him in the neck, went forward into his arm, down into his thigh, out of the front of his knee, into the seat in front of him, and hit the governor in the back, and was perfectly intact. And then the third, that's why when you watch the Zapruder film, he's holding his neck because he had just been shot in the neck. So he's leaned over holding his neck, and then the third shot was the one through the head. So yeah, 3 shots, like super fast from a bookstore window, several hundred feet back. Just a lot of variables happening at once.
So do you not think that Lee Harvey, like, you think he was maybe framed, or where does he kind of fit into the mix?
So yes, yeah, there's the magic bullet. So yeah, into the back, then the neck, then the arm, then the leg. And then surprisingly was all in one piece. If in court they call it the magic bullet. Yeah. they tend to not do that so much.
Yeah, bullets do weird stuff. I don't know about all that shit. And then it being pristine at the end is the real weird thing, because they get all warped up and beat up after hitting bones and stuff. And I don't know.
Looks like there were like 6 points of contact in that graphic. Like that would ball up and fuck a bullet up, right?
If it's like Full Metal Jacket, it stays pointy. Like
really?
Yeah, it's not going to mushroom back. It's going to stay, and that is Full Metal Jacket. It's going to stay together, but it's going to look worse than that. That would be a real pristine bullet if you found that like out on the sand at a firing range, downrange. If you go downrange at like Knob Creek in Kentucky, millions of rounds have been fired that way. And so if you just go down there, start like kicking dirt, you could just piles of the lead, the projectiles, just every kind you can imagine. Like, and you can see that like, well, not too many are pristine
unless it what?
I got him.
No, I got him. You guys were so still. I couldn't tell if all of you froze. I'm like, maybe it's me.
No,
you're good. You're good now. You're good.
Yeah,
now,
you said unless they wouldn't be, the bullets would not be pristine unless.
Unless you hit sand or something. And it was like we would shoot bullets into that rubber stuff they use for landscaping. You can fill a trash can up with that and use that as a bullet stop. You're doing like ammo tests and stuff. You shoot right in, it'll catch the bullet. The bullet's in pretty pristine condition because it's going through soft rubber. But when you hit dirt and rocks and shit, the bullets get mangled. I don't know. Whenever I've hit animals and recovered them, they were mangled too. I don't know about all that. So they call it a magic bullet for a reason. They conspired to kill that guy.
Yeah. What was the Lee Harvey?
Did.
Like what?
I'm not positive about this one because I haven't like dove into the research regarding him specifically. Whenever I was doing my MLK assassination video, I saw this and like quickly followed it and I was like, all right, whenever I remake a full bore JFK video, I will come back to this. But Lee Harvey Oswald was an employee at the bookstore. And according to official records, he was a communist sympathizer, didn't like JFK. It was during the Cold War, so they just called him a commie because that was the idea. So he he supposedly just decided that he was going to kill the president whenever he heard that the president was going along that area. So I'm sorry, I'm going brain dead right now. Does something need to be said?
No. You're...
Sorry. I heard the mic come on, and I was like, oh, what's going on?
It's never happened before.
Yeah, we heard you typing,
audio, and we heard him typing, and
that's why I froze up. I'm like, is this an emergency announcement?
I don't know.
Sorry about that. I thought it was just going to stop. No big deal.
You're good.
Nukes at last.
Yeah, sorry.
They're getting first they got Kyle, now they got Zach. Anyway,
all of us.
So to stay on the train of thought, supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald just hated the president, and the United States wanted to kill him. According to a report, this was the quick thing I saw, I haven't fully looked into. The initial police report is that because the police ran into the building, that whenever they ran into the building, Lee Harvey Oswald was downstairs working. According to again, this one report that I haven't validated, that he was just downstairs working there, sweeping the floor or whatever. And then one of the police officers was murdered. Supposedly the first guy who ran into Oswald got shot. And then Oswald escaped out of the bookstore and to an old movie theater, if I remember correctly. And then the police followed them there and arrested him. But that initial police report says that when they got in, Oswald was just there. He wasn't upstairs shooting another cop with a gun. And then that report disappeared from the official record later. So the theory is that Oswald was set up to be the fall guy or the patsy. And then later they just took that record out so that it would better fit the narrative that Oswald was the shooter. On top of that, whenever Oswald was being held by the police, he kept saying, like, I have no idea what's going on. And then whenever they explained like the shooting and everything, he said, oh, so I'm the patsy. I'm the fall guy. That's how this is going to work. And then he gets shot by Jack Ruby. So a lot of people are dubious over the Oswald connection.
I think Jack Ruby may have killed him to cover up anything he would have said?
Yeah. So that's the theory. So Jack Ruby was a mob enforcer. He had carried out like jobs for. That's why I said he wasn't specifically in the mob. He was more like a contractor. He supposedly just loved the president so much that he decided to shoot the guy as he was being transferred to interrogation out of the kindness of his own heart. So he gets gunned down, and then whenever they arrest him, he's like, oh, I just like the president. And it turns out he had cancer, and he died 4 months later. It was 4 months or 4 years soon after. And if I remember correctly, his family, he had family debt and like hospital bills from his cancer that disappeared after he shot Oswald. So,
That's
and that was part of a lot of people throw that towards the mob theory. They're like, oh, maybe the mob hired him to do it to pay off his debt. It's like, yeah, the CIA, that's the mob you're looking for. They have a name and everything.
And they can
so that's like the Oswald theory and like the Ruby theory and all that. And of course, it goes into more of like there being a second shooter, the whole grassy knoll thing and all that. So
what is the grassy knoll thing? I've always heard that like as a joke from Dale Gribble in King of the Hill, and I never looked like, what is that theory?
So Kennedy is in the back. Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I just said pocket sand quietly.
Oh,
pocket sand.
my apologies. So Kennedy's in the Lincoln. He's going down the street, and Lee Harvey Oswald is in a bookstore behind him, like to his like back right. There is a grassy knoll, as it's been dubbed, which is a small hill underneath a tree by a fence to like his forward right, both on the right side of the vehicle, but the grassy knoll's in front of him. The only footage that we still have is of the shooting is the Zapruder film. That is the film. So there's a picture of the grassy knoll, like up towards where the trees are back there, like the shadowy area. I don't think that wall's still there today, if I remember correctly, but like it's like a little field essentially. So anyway, the only footage that we have is of the Zapruder film. There was a cameraman standing on the same side of the vehicle of the camera shot we just saw, who was filming the whole thing. So he on the opposite side, he would have been over near the grassy knoll filming. So he's filming the whole thing, and he films from that angle as the shots ring out and as Kennedy gets killed. In the footage on the Zapruder film, you can see that there is someone else across the street who is also filming on a camera. So that should be the solution, right? Because if our cameraman, the Zapruder cameraman's back here and the shooter's over to his right, then the person on the other side of the street should have an angle of that. And supposedly, well, not supposedly, this is a fact, they recovered that footage and brought it into court during the trial, but like the movie JFK is about and all that. So, yeah, so see how Zapruder position is like next to the grassy knoll dude? Over there where the mouse is on the right side of the road is where this mystery cameraman was. So anyway, that footage makes its way into court, and it was not shown publicly. It was shown to a private jury. The jury said that the evidence in the footage was compelling. And the next day, whenever they moved to make it public record, they misplaced the tape. And to this day, it's never been recovered. They just, the biggest trial ever, they're like, oh, we misfiled it, I guess. It's just, it's not here anymore. But according to the luck. Yeah, and according to
I hope some CIA guy didn't lose his job over that. Oh my God! Can you imagine?
He worked hard to file that paperwork, man. According to the people who did see it, they're at the grassy knoll, which is again the position in the diagram. Whenever Kennedy's head explodes and he actually gets shot, there is a large puff of smoke from the grassy knoll. And that also lines up because Kennedy was in the Lincoln leaned down like this. And whenever he got shot, supposedly from up here, his head jerked backwards and his whole body flew out the back. Which, yeah, your muscles can do weird stuff when you get shot. But it's much more likely if he was shot from the front that his head would shoot backwards like that, rather than getting shot in the back of the head and, you know, having that reaction.
Yeah, that's
so the idea is that the shooter was in front of him at the grassy knoll, rather than behind him at the bookstore. There's also like the three bullets.
I'm in.
The 3 bullets is also widely contested. For example, supposedly the first shot's the one that skipped across the pavement and hit the guy watching the parade go by, right? Well, according to that guy's account, he heard a gunshot and stopped and then looked and then got struck in the leg. So supposedly, again, according to the theory, the grassy knoll guy fired first, and then whoever's in the book, because there was someone in the bookstore, whoever was in the bookstore, that shot is the one that hit him. Because there's no way this guy heard a gunshot and was like, I wonder what that could be. And then that gave enough time for the bullet to skip and hit him.
No, that's not how speed works.
That's not how speed works. Yeah,
it would have to be some wacky shit, but it's possible. That's the fun thing. Like that bullet would have been like ding dong ding, and he hears bang. The bullet's still going bing bang ding. Clip. Like
it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon jumping all around the square. Yeah. And perfectly intact.
Yeah, I never knew how much bullets bust until I started shooting a lot of tracers, specifically like not just bang bang bang, but when you've got like a belted machine gun shooting hundreds of tracers at like that area. And you're hitting like trees and stumps and rocks and hard pieces of dirt and soft pieces of dirt and water. Well, let's start making sharp turns that you don't think are like physically possible. They just make a right turn and they're already going 3,000 feet per second and they just hang a left.
I've had that same experience. I shot a saw. People know this is a belt-fed machine gun. It was on the ground with a bipod, and we were shooting it at a car. And after the bullets hit the car, in my mind, they vanish, turn to powder, stop,
disappear.
Yeah.
See,
like,
the CIA thinks that way too, actually.
But in reality, because they're tracers, you can really see where they're going, and they're just zinging all over the place. Sometimes back at you. They do crazy things. And Kyle's right. Like that story they tell is improbable, but not impossible. So.
What's crazy is it's like, okay, you're expecting me to believe that some wonky shit happened the day a president died. I'm not going to buy that. Look, a president already died today, so I'm going to just assume everything else went like it normally does in our plane of existence and assume y'all had a guy hiding over there, one up there, probably a third we don't know about who just didn't have a clean shot. Like,
right.
I think they conspired to kill that guy, and there's just so many reasons. He was a fly in the pudding, or whatever they say. In the ointment, is it?
Fly in the ointment. Yep.
That's what Biden was talking about. Yeah.
I think I'm a fly. and the life
callback.
tries to get rid of me, but I'm stuck like a fly. And the orange life.
There was a lot of reasons they would have wanted him dead. They also did suspicious stuff that day. Like every time the president goes somewhere, they put Secret Service everywhere. And the day of the Dallas drive, the Secret Service got together and they were like, hey, there's something like, I think the number was 1,200 windows he's going to be driving by. That's too many to cover. Let's just no security today.
I did not know about that.
He's too exposed. No one watch him.
It's just a wasted effort. Let's hope. Like,
like that can make
he's
sense.
in God's hands now.
Yeah.
Why don't they just say, let's not do
CIA's
it?
capable hands.
Let's put the fucking top up. Whose idea was the top down? I always think back to that scene in The Office when Michael is driving and Dwight's in the passenger seat of his convertible PT Cruiser, and Dwight thinks it's so cool to let the top down, but it's the middle of winter. And he's like, and he's already unbuckled them, and they're coming down, and there's no choice anymore. I just imagine that shitty governor of Texas wanted his picture taken with the president. He was like, no, come on, and he's like twisting how
Put the top down.
put the top down, and the wife is like, fuck, this guy's an asshole. He's like,
Is that the view from the grassy knoll?
Oh.
This would have been where the shooter was. Yeah.
Wait, there could be clues on the fence.
All right.
Look, he wrote his name right there.
He wrote it right there. His name's Roy Sanchez.
That's so
Roy
close.
Sanchez, you son of a gun.
The
Little
trees
Louis
know. I like
Monroe.
that. The trees know. That's pretty good. That goes
Yeah,
on.
that's good.
The trees know that is good.
That's a lot closer than I thought it was. The way that looked, like, I don't know where he was when he got shot in perspective to like where that camera was just sitting. But if you were trying to shoot a guy in that Suburban or whatever down there, that wouldn't be a challenge at all.
It
That'd
does.
be like
I thought that same
child's
thing,
play.
but also I don't know. You know how cameras work. I feel like I can't take it at face value.
I was just kind of looking at the sidewalk and the steps and kind of like doing
It's
a little.
it's not
feel
a
like
long
I could
shot
grab
at all. It's like 70, 80 feet maybe. If I remember
Okay,
right.
yeah, okay, yeah.
I have a
70,
lens
80
that would
feet.
make that
He's
look like a
super
hard
dead.
shot and an easy
He's
shot.
super dead at 70 or 80 feet.
Especially if you miss and you have a guy to cover your ass.
Yeah, you've got like what's funny is if that's true and they each fired like 3 shots, right? They were horrific. For like a couple seconds, it was like the Wild West, just bam, 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 bam. He's missing all the shots. They're skipping over the car.
Yeah.
Too bad he couldn't like Mr. Magoo his way out of that. Like he reaches down to tie his shoes at the right time. Gets up to say something. It's like the tires are popping behind him as he looks through the street. Yeah.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah, but that's not the world we live in.
Hey,
And then they killed Bobby. And then they killed Bobby. What was that guy's name was like Sirhan, right? Something like
Bobby
that.
Kennedy?
Yeah, the guy who showed up and shot him in a kitchen that the Secret Service just let him into, and then he gets shot, and then they burn the evidence.
They have to. They did it.
Yeah, so
it's really weird. I think we might be living. I think that America may have died sometime around that period in history, and we're just like the leftovers.
We're like riding the corpse as long as it'll go. Speaking of something that's kind of like an urban legend or a myth, I was looking around for stuff because I was just thinking like, I don't know, it was one of those stupid little Google things you do where you're like, I wonder what a myth is out there that I believe is a myth, but it actually isn't. And then like on a different tab, be like, I wonder what a myth is that I don't believe, but it's actually true. And I started trying to find something there. And I'm gonna say a couple, and I want you to tell me if this is a real fact, a true fact, or propaganda.
I'm psyched for this.
All right. Sex before competing in sports makes you worse because
That's a myth.
Backwards.
It's a myth. Kyle, you're pretty confident about that.
That's a myth. That's bullshit.
It raises your testosterone level, I'm told.
Is it?
That's why Ronda Rousey fucks before every fight.
You're correct, Woody. It raises your testosterone and it gets you hyped. Ovechkin says part of his game performance, can't tell if he's joking because he's Russian, hard to read that cadence, but he says he fucks before and after every game.
To
His
make
poor
sure the
teammates.
I was trying to. I wanted to make a joke. I couldn't form it.
Oh, looks like somebody didn't play too
I was
much
like, that
tonight.
guy's ass must be sort. No, that's not
How about,
working. Nah, Kyle
How
nailed
about
it.
this one? Satan is the ruler of hell according to Christianity. Is that true, or is that a myth, or is that real?
So I think it's true, but using psychology,
Don't you Google, Kyle?
I think it's going to be
I was going to look up
false.
something completely different, but I was about to Google. It had nothing to do with this, but you triggered something in my head about a different religion that believes that God is the true deceiver. And I've been Graham Hancock turned me on to that. I want to go to that in a second. But
Satanism.
As far as I know, no, Satan works for God. He did, right? He was one of Lucifer was one of the God's angels. He was jealous that God was loving man more than the angels, and he rebelled against God, and he was overthrown and sent down to hell, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that he's the ruler of hell because of what I just said. He was thrown into hell, right? Although everything like pop culture wise and everything I've ever been taught says, the guy with the viper-gated tail and the pitchfork down there, he's the one running the show. So
yeah,
I'm just going to say that the devil runs hell, though by its very nature, it seems like God runs hell.
I'm going to say that the devil doesn't run hell because I'm just getting that vibe.
Ahmed, does the devil run hell?
It's funny because in Islam, it's kind of similar to Christianity as far as hell and heaven and the devil and all that shit.
Well, the first part of the Quran and the first part of the Bible are pretty much the same thing.
They're all Abrahamic religions.
They are similar. Yeah, there are Abrahamic religions and ideologies. A lot of them are similar. But in Islam, what we have learned is that no, he doesn't run hell. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess I'll go with that. He doesn't.
So you're correct, Ahmed. And I guess all of you are correct. He does not run hell. He was sent to hell. And it's just always assumed that I guess because he was the first guy to show up in hell that he kind of established a base, I guess. And then as more people showed up, he just did like the pretend authority figure where it's like, you believe I'm in charge, so I am. And then send people around. But yeah, he's not actually in charge of hell.
Real quick, not to change the subject. Have you guys seen The Invention of Lying? It's a movie from Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, I saw that right when it came out a long time ago.
Yeah, that movie is hilarious. Basically, people, maybe I shouldn't spoil it, but this movie takes place in a place where no one can lie. So everyone tells the truth 100% of the time. So this guy somehow imagines or starts lying, discovers lying. So he goes to the bank and he's short on money, and he's like, the cashier woman is like, well, sir, our systems are down. How much money do you have on your bank account? And he's like, he wants to say 300, but he needs $800. So he's like, wait, I can say 800. And he says $800. And then she just gives him $800. So a few scenes later in the movie, he basically found every religion on earth, and he says there's a man in the sky, and he does that, and he says that. And if you do 3 wrong things, you go to a place that is not very very nice or pleasant called hell. And if you don't do that, you go to a place where you get a mansion, and everyone gets a mansion. That movie is hilarious. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty funny.
That religion I was thinking.
Oh, go ahead. I'll jump
quickly though. The religion I was thinking of, Graham Hancock was talking about this in one of his whatever you call it when you stand in front of a bunch of people with a fucking PowerPoint and tell them stuff. It wasn't a TED talk. It was somewhere else at a university or something. But he was talking about this religion that it believed that the Christian God was not a god, that he was actually a demon who had come to earth to deceive humanity into believing that he was a god. That was his game. He likes to go places and make people or entities believe he's a god and then have them worship him. And so what they explain, they talk about the Garden of Eden. And in this religion, they see the serpent as the good guy. He's coming into where humanity's imprisoned and saying, you've been fooled. You don't even know the difference between right and wrong. You're just here to worship that guy. That's all he's doing. He's just sapping your worship juice up, and that's all he cares about, right? Eat the apple, and you'll have knowledge, and you'll be freed from this evil, deceptive demon. And so they did, and God throws them out. And remember what God did after that happened. He's like, Eve, now not only you will be in pain the rest of your days, all women. And you'll be confused when you're thrown out of here, and you'll have to suffer the serpents and the beasts of the land. He just went to cursing us left and right when we ate this apple of knowledge, so we know the difference between right and wrong. Then look at like what he does. And I'm parroting what Graham says in his lecture. He burns us when we're bad. He forces us to worship and praise him constantly. Are these the actions of a generous, kind, omnipotent, omniscient being? No, they're the actions of a fucking intergalactic demon who's fucking taking up our worship juice. Satan's the good guy.
That is
Strong point.
That is pants on head retarded.
And the Christians burned these people alive and persecuted them throughout the ages, and they went underground and they are no more.
I feel like both sides of this viewpoint are pants on head retarded. But
I'm just saying that being like, oh, dude, Star Trek, that's not real. The real Star Trek story, they were in a Ford Windstar driving across the country. They weren't even in the future. And it's just like, no, that's not. You're just taking a fantasy story and making it into a slightly different fantasy story. Being like, because clearly that guy Graham Hancock doesn't buy into any of it, and so he's just treating it like a fanfic thing, where he's like, "This could be real too," you know.
Graham Hancock believes that our soul or our being, like the part, he doesn't think it's our brain. He thinks that our brain is like a television set that is receiving the signal that is our soul. That's what this physical part of us is. And that when we just
passed into a new field.
And when the body is gone, that your soul or your intelligence goes on living afterwards.
And he's a scientist?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But like, I would believe like there are lots of scientists who are religious, but very few I don't know. Like he's not
religious. He doesn't preach that religion I just like was talking about.
No, I know. I was saying there are scientists who are religious. So when they're like, oh, I'm a Christian and I'm a physicist, or I'm, whatever, and I'm a scientist, you're like, all right, yeah, I understand. Like there's a cultural thing to that. But for a scientist who's really into science to be like, I don't believe the brain's responsible for all this. It's like, yeah, well, do 3 minutes of Googling and you'll be like, oh yeah, see, they used to think it was the heart. And then they very quickly found out it's the brain as soon as we had the capacity to analyze the brain.
Well, what he started
that believes the Earth is
turn our brain off,
3,000
turn
years
it back
old.
on, and we're still here.
That's even more ridiculous.
We don't turn our brain off and turn it back on. What do you mean? Can you define?
When has a near-death experience, your brain stops, you're flatline, no electrical impulses in your brain, then they just turn you right back on, and I'm here again, and it's me. It's still me. I don't know what consciousness is. I don't think anybody does, and I don't think science has figured it out quite yet either. That's kind of like the biggest question of them all, right? Is like, what is consciousness? Like, are we either a product of this like fleshy goo between our ears, or are we something a little bit more important than that?
It's interesting that a guy like him, who seems to make fun of religion for taking a naturalistic event and imposing a super complex, unknowable being as the catalyst for it, and then saying, oh, and the brain, that's not responsible for all of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. It's actually this infinitely complex and undefinable ethos in our body that is responsible for that. It's like the same thing, that same paradigm of you're explaining natural cause, a natural system with an unexplainable, unknowable entity because it's confusing. It's just kind of the same structure.
I don't know enough about the brain and how it works. I don't know that we've definitely settled on that the brain is what creates our consciousness. I just don't know that. I don't think anybody does, or that I don't know that our consciousness ends when we're turned off.
Your consciousness, like the fact that when your brain shuts off, you cease
facilitates
to be,
it, but does it create it?
It
facilitates it, but does it create it? That's the question.
Yes, it does create it, because there is a video I linked to us like in our PKA chat a couple days ago. It's some disorder where you're no longer able to control your body. You don't have without looking at it. So basically this guy has sensations on his body where, like, if you like slapped his hand, he'd be like, oh, I felt that. But if you told him to close his eyes and then put his hand to his right like that, he wouldn't be able to put it in the space that he wanted, because as soon as his eyes are closed, he can't feel
what's
the locomotion.
Is it proprioception or something?
Proprioception. That's exactly what it is. And so he just doesn't feel the locomotion ability. And so it's just, he has to look at everything he does to make sure that it's actually going. So it's all relayed back to the brain. The brain's the only thing that allows that information to be perceived. So as soon as
but now you're talking about motor
but,
mechanics and stuff.
No, but it's not just that. As soon as that area of the brain was damaged, he lost the ability to perceive information in that way and to respond to information that he would have been perceiving. And so it's like
about his body
because of his brain.
Yeah, because the brain controls the body. I'm not talking about command and control. I'm not talking about what's required for one thing to exist. I'm talking about. I'm saying that they could be, both things could be true at the same time. I know the brain is what allows us, and when I say us, I mean my consciousness, to control everything else. And if you fuck with my brain, then I just can't do that shit right. But what I'm saying is that what makes me me might not be all about the gray stuff between my ears.
Things
I
like
might just be
love
me.
and hurt and
that's your brain. I'm talking about me. What makes me me? The me
that's
me.
all your brain.
Yeah, that's the brain. Yeah.
It's
have
all.
You guys heard about the Italian doctor that is trying to put a head, decapitated head from a person and put it on another body?
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
He's getting
2020
a full body,
or something.
Yeah, full body transplant.
Yeah, he already has full body. No, actually, it's a head transplant because he's going to transfer a head to another body.
Yeah, but he doesn't become the life of the guy whose body is taken. He doesn't like come out of the surgery like I'm Jeff.
Well, no one knows. No one knows. Well, we'll see
we
what
know
happens.
that.
We talked about this on the show a while ago.
Works.
In that there were some people who felt like whatever makes me me, the thing Kyle is talking about, existed in the heart, which today sounds crazy, right? Today everyone's looking at your brain, but not long before I was born, some people thought your soul was in your heart, and it wasn't just a pump. So if someone actually does pull off a brain transplant, we'll all look back on it and say we already knew, right? Oh yeah, we already knew it was in the brain, but it'll be fun to observe it.
Well, it's not. It's a head transplant. So just to be clear, because the audience is listening and maybe they're not. This man is living right now, and his body is fucked. They have a new body over there, so they're gonna chop his head off and they're gonna put it on that new body, and he, being the head, is going to control that new body. The guy who used to own that new body, his head is somewhere else right now, okay? And it's rotting in the ground, and whatever made him is either A, also rotting in the ground in his brain, or B, is being projected onto some other TV screen somewhere else.
Both guys are still alive right now.
Both guys are alive, yes.
You know what I'm saying, though? When they cut his fucking head off, he won't be, because he'll be dead. Because they're not.
I agree
one
with
guy
that.
is getting one guy's head is getting a new body.
One
the
guy is
other guy's
dying.
head is getting burned.
You think they'll give him the old shit body so they can still feel the casket?
But
otherwise, 6 guys just going to be like, oh, he didn't weigh anything in the end. There,
There'll be 2 bolts coming out the side.
But I mean, if that works, it's pretty crazy.
I heard scientists talk about the possibility that his consciousness could be in some sort of weird limbo inside of his own brain, unable to touch or feel or sense anything, but only to be conscious in a void inside of that body. And they talked about how torturously and that would be to one's mind, your consciousness, to just exist without any way to
express yourself at all.
I don't understand how we are remotely close to the head transplant, and here's why.
Honestly, we're not.
Right here in my arm,
think
people
he's gonna
see
succeed.
where people. This is a scar in my
Yeah, I
arm.
see it.
There's my ulnar nerve was damaged. There was a tumor in it. They pulled the tumor out, and then I lost some big percentage of the nerve, and it's why this hand doesn't work that well. They can't fucking connect the nerve that's here to the nerve that's here. Like that's not a
broken.
thing.
And it's not just broken, it was destroyed by the cancer.
It wasn't cancer. It was a surgical thing. When they cut, I think it was a pack of blood or something, but when they cut the tumor out because it was getting bigger, they also cut the nerves that it was growing inside of. So they're just scalpel damage in there. And over time, some of the nerves found each other, and it went from like totally paralyzed to, I'll make up a number, like 30%. But that's where it is. If they
this guy has no damage,
that, but they'll be damaged when they cut his head off.
Well, they're not going to just lop it off with an axe. They're going to very carefully dissect it from his body, removing all these necessary plug-ins carefully and making sure that we don't fray any of the wiring. And they're going to try to plug him back into this new guy's spinal cord.
So I'm outside my expertise, but my ideas, they're like
wiring harness back there.
Yeah, they're with a trillion wires in it, and that they can't reconnect nerves, and that's where I thought we were.
Yeah,
I think they can
challenge-
time.
The biggest
It just
challenge
depends
that's-
on how they were separated or damaged.
that they will face. The biggest challenge, I think, is going to be, because I read in an article that the operation will take 36 hours or something.
It's a long time to be
36
dead.
36 hours.
And
like
how
$11
the hell are you going to
million,
keep a head
150
alive? Yeah, and how are you going to keep life?
I
It's
know
going
the
to be on a
answer to
transfusion
that.
machine.
It's really
right?
cool. Yes. So the Soviets did this shit with a fucking German Shepherd's head. Anybody ever seen the video of the German
Oh,
Shepherd's
wow.
head?
Watched it in neuroscience
Fucking
class.
chop this German Shepherd's head off, and they fucking pump oxygenated blood in one side of its brain and out the other, like using its circulatory system that's there, and they're just pumping oxygen, and the dog's head is just there, like fuck.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just ahead. Like what's probably going to end up happening with this, because it's the first time we're trying it, is the guy who gets his head cut off will die during the surgery. Like I if I had to bet on it, I'd put like all my money on the guy dying in surgery and he never wakes up. And if he does somehow wake up, it'll only be like he won't be able to control anything. Like this is one of those like forge ahead surgeries, kind of like when Carson did the separating two Siamese twins at the brain. Like it's going to be like a breakthrough surgery where they learn a ton of shit, but this one's not going to pan out.
With
like,
heart
there's
surgery?
just no way.
It went like that too. Like people like, oh, they did a successful heart surgery. He lived 3 days. And then some guy broke a record and lived like 14 days. And then like there was an artificial heart that lasted for a year. And isn't that crazy? And now like they have it, they're way ahead.
Pretty routine almost. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to overstep because I don't know. It sounds like you might. But yeah, now they can put in new hearts and it turns out okay.
Mm-hmm. It's really
I
just the
want a pig
supply
heart.
of hearts that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, get a pig heart.
Yeah, that
I got
also
a
was
pig
on
heart.
What you tell them when they ask you about your pig heart? I tell them it's cause I'm sweet as baking sugar.
What are we talking
guys,
South
did
Park.
you, South Park, yeah. Did you guys see the video I put in the chat? This is a
we
game
didn't
we used to
finish
play.
Taylor's thing. Like he had a whole.
Oh yeah, I want to
series
go
of-
back to
What was
the
it?
urban legend thing. There's a couple hard.
Yeah.
So, Iron Maidens. Do you know what an Iron Maiden is?
Yes, I do.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Saddam Hussein's son had one, and he fucking used it on people.
So an Iron Maiden, what it is, it's picture a big sarcophagus that like a mummy would be in, except it opens and it's full of spikes. And you would put someone in it, and it's made of Iron Maiden. And
Oh, yeah, this-
close it, and it would pierce them, usually in non-vital areas, and they'd just be forced to stand up, kind of pinned there. And it was a torture method.
Like a really
Or-
shitty magician.
Like, yes, like a very shitty magician. And they had like an eye slit cut so they could see if you were still alive in there. Because eventually, of course, you'd bleed out if you're just punctured all day. So that was an ancient torture method. Or was it?
It was. It absolutely was. And because, like I just said, Saddam Hussein's son had one, like a legitimate one. It's not like he went and made one. He's like, hey, give me one of those good ones the French used to use. And he fucking put people in it.
I'm going to agree with Kyle because he seems to know what he's talking about.
No, I've heard about that before. Saddam Hussein, like, son, you're talking about Qusay, right?
I don't
Qusay
and Uday. Yeah.
Yeah, Qusay was one of the most brutal guys ever in the history of Iraq. Like, he invented torture methods. Yeah, I remember in the 80s there was a story about Iraqi football team losing a very important
acid?
game. Yeah, and he put the entire team in jail, and he cut off their legs and tortured the entire football team of Iraq in the 80s. He was pretty ridiculous.
That's not a good way to practice for the next game.
They won 4 World Cups in a row after that.
But the next team will know that if they lose,
they need to
they
defect.
know what they will lose.
Well, you guys are all wrong. The Iron Maiden was never an ancient torture device. It was actually made at first in the 18th century for circuses as like a sensationalist, like this is what they used to do back in the old days. Throw you right in the Iron Maiden, close it up. Aren't you happy you live here? Or like however they talk. Like that's what they did. And then it's in modern days, I guess that the Hussein boys were so inspired that they made their own, but it was not an actual torture method.
Do you guys know what a
past,
paper town
from
is?
ancient times.
Paper
A paper town? No.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool. And somehow it seems similar to an Iron Maiden to me. So back in the day, maps were harder to make than they are now. And to stop people from just copying your map and saying, hey, I made a map too. It's just like Taylor's, but I didn't copy, I swear. They would put fake towns in place. It was called a paper town. So, Taylorsville might not even be a real place. But if I copied it onto my map, I know I copied from Taylor. Like they'd get one wrong. And, but what happened is people would go there enough that like someone might put a store, someone might do a thing, and paper towns can become real towns because of that. And an Iron Maiden became a real torture device because of a fake thing.
Yep. So because of those circus folk, a lot of people got tortured in Iraq in the 21st century. I guess
they were going to get tortured 20th anyway.
Century. They just made it a little more creative.
Yeah.
This one. They find a way.
So everybody knows about touching baby birds and how you're not supposed to touch them or their mom will not take them
disown
back.
the baby bird, right?
Is that a real thing, or is that an urban legend?
So I'm going to say that's not true, based on the fact that we had a bird nest under our porch and the baby bird fell out, and I put the baby bird back in, and it was raised to maturity and flew away.
I'm going to say it's not true because I think I've heard this one dispelled before.
Yeah, chickens are birds, right? And they're the same category as you're describing, right? Because
no, they're not chickens. Birds.
Well,
the chickens are birds.
I think they're birds.
They are birds. Come on. But we had chickens, and we always used to play with the baby chicks, but their parents wouldn't be angry or anything. So I don't think that's true.
All right. Well, y'all got that one right. Could any of you explain to me what a vomitorium was? Anyone? And it's an ancient Roman word.
I think.
Yeah, it's either like they were gonna vomitorium. God, I know this.
I think the myth is that people would eat, gorge themselves, vomit, and then eat more. And I went to a vomitorium when we went to I think it was a town that got burnt down by like a volcano that wasn't Pompeii. It was like another one.
Vesuvius.
Maybe? I forget. Anyway, so and in this case, they said it was the home of a wealthy person, like based on what it was. And it was just a little corner, like not plumbing or anything, but like kind of a hole. The whole floor was stone and this spot wasn't. And they would just kind of vomit in that spot and then get back to eating. So how close did I come?
That's that. I immediately thought that as well. I was I knew that it was either one of two things, because I know the Romans that word is not the word for the fetish for liking to get vomited on. Although I think that like the another phrase for that is a Roman shower or something like that, is what they call it when the one person pukes on you. Because I think the Romans were into that, vomiting on each other as a sexualized thing. But I'm going to go with this one.
Okay. Well, you are both wrong about what a vomitorium is. It actually has nothing to do with vomiting at all. A vomitorium is an entrance to a coliseum or an amphitheater of sorts, because it looked like it was, quote, vomiting people back out onto the street after events ended. And so it was called the vomitorium. It was just the entranceway or the exit way from the coliseum. So it has nothing to do with vomit. There you go. The more you know.
Indeed.
Edit that in. The star swipe.
With a little Bill who wants to be a law sitting there just for no reason.
Donald Trump needs to watch that shit.
Yeah. How a bill becomes a law.
Yeah, that'd be funny if they like come into his office and he pauses that. He's like,
he signed a law. He did a real thing. Now ISPs can sell your personal data to advertisers.
Huzzah!
I had really thought there was a chance that he wouldn't sign that.
Oh, I've got a good one for everyone, but for one person in particular is going to know. Martyrs and 72 virgins. You
that
get
is
72 virgins, guaranteed in the bank.
No, it's not 72 virgins. That's a mistranslation. It's 72 raisins.
Raisins?
Yes. Google it.
I have my own theory.
Fucker.
So the 19 terrorists take down the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and whatnot. And they go up there and there's like Patrick Henry with like a baseball bat ready to kick some ass, and George Washington, and they all just start beating on the terrorists. And they're like, what the fuck is going on here? And they said, no, it's 72 Virginians.
Virginians. Well, I'm sure Ahmed actually knows the answer.
Well, I do actually know the answer. The answer is that there's a verse in the Quran that was telling a story about people who defended their home. They did jihad, which is the literal definition of the word jihad is doing an action in defense of your belief or your home or your family or your land. That's jihad, not blowing up yourself. Well, that also could, in some context, and someone would argue that it also is jihad. But there's a verse in the Quran that says those people that did that got 72 virgins. So basically, yeah, the idea is true. You do get a 72 virgins if you do jihad. But it's always taken out of context from that story. It always, they think that it's applied to anyone that does it. But in the Quran, it doesn't say. It just says that happened and God gave them 72 virgins. So,
yeah, it says on this very, I'm sure, reputable list that it is a matter of debate in Islam, nowhere in the Quran, but is reported in other texts. So, You know what? That wasn't fair of them to put on here because they just said, I don't know. This is the last one on the list, and they were getting desperate.
It has been mentioned in the Quran, but not in the context that people believe it to be. So it's kind of always taken out of context.
Makes sense. I'm sorry, Kyle. What were you saying?
I was just sent those 3 links from CNN.
Oh, raisins or virgins. I remember hearing something about that, and I was like, there's no way that a bunch of people just have continued to misread raisins for this long.
I've heard it too. I don't pretend to know what's true, but I will say that 72 raisins isn't really that motivating to me.
If it's the year 1 and I have 72 fucking raisins, you're gonna be like, what? Where did you get them all?
I don't think so.
Could I smell your hand? The hand you touched the raisins with? You got 72 fucking raisins back then, and they're like, look, if you martyr yourself, your wife is getting all of this.
All of these raisins. That's a mid-afternoon snack.
I just feel like even year 1 version of me is worth more than 72 raisins. I hope I bring in a dead raccoon every once in a while. You know,
I want to like trade it in for a different meal. You know, be like, that raisins are great. Can I exchange those? Do you do exchanges here?
No substitutions.
Have it your way. You know.
Was that the last one, Taylor, or are there more?
I'm eating raisins now.
Nice. Well, this must be heaven.
Oh, you have raisins.
I do have 72 raisins.
Do you? How long do you have to wait to file a missing persons report?
72 hours.
I think I always hear like 72 hours in the movies and stuff, but you can probably do it right away, right?
I thought it was 24, but I'm going to guess immediately.
Yes, it's immediately.
Yeah.
See, because like a lot of the problems with these questions is that you're like,
like if Jackie is just gone, Woody's like, Jackie didn't fucking just go anywhere. She's been taken. Like, we need to put this report in now. Like, it just wouldn't work. Like, there's too many people.
That makes so much sense because like it's one of those things that you don't think about at all when it's said in like a show or a movie where it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't carry that out. We're so busy with paperwork and cop stuff that we gotta wait 3 days for you to report it. But like, if someone, like, imagine yourself in that situation of telling a cop, like, my son's been taken. When was this? I don't know. This afternoon. Call me on Thursday. you would be like, are you fucking kidding me? No, absolutely not. And so it's like the first time this question's really asked of you, you're like, oh, duh, of course. Yeah, like the cop can't just say, no, fuck you, come back in a couple days. Like, yeah, of course.
I do believe that police may take it more seriously, like, depending on the story, right? Like, hey, I came home from school, my wife wasn't there. Like, yeah, well, sometimes that happens, right? You know, like,
I think if you say that, they're going to take you very seriously as a suspect. You're like, my wife hasn't been here since Tuesday. Why don't you fucking say something sooner? Well, in the movies, they always say 72 hours, and I was worried, though.
Well, that's all of the good ones that I got. All the rest, I'm realizing, are like, I'll ask it, and I can only ask it in a way that gives away the answer. Because I'd have to be like, how many wise men were there? And then you guys would be like, well, you want me to say 3, but that's clearly wrong. So not 3. I'll be like, oh, well, you're right again, you geniuses. Like, it wasn't CNN, Fox, MSNBC. It wasn't one of them that forced the hand of people.
But so easy to discredit. Like fucking what? They're going to arrest the Wayfair president now because that story came out. It's like you could discredit these things.
I hear Wayfair, but I'm not up to date on it.
That shit is so
Wayfair
weird.
thing's hilarious.
I was looking
it's
at
so weird.
Yeah, you take it, Ant.
It's Wayfair. You buy and sell. You buy things. It's
is it like Amway kind of like it?
No, it's kind of like what would you call it? Like just an online place where you can buy shit.
Just Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some items there that were just ridiculously overpriced for what they were. You buy these industrial shelves, and it was $50,000 or $30,000, and one left. And the name of the item was the same as a missing child. Yeah, you would look these things up and go, oh, it's an Emily whatever shelves. And then you look up Emily whatever, and it's like, oh, this girl's been missing for a while.
Oh, you missed the best part.
It was
like
good.
The shelf, the items were the same. Like they got like 30 of the same shelves. They've all got different names though, and they're different prices.
Yeah, different prices. Same shelves, different names, different price, but all ridiculously jacked up.
Emily
prices.
must have been a fucking smoke show, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, you're literally right. It would say like Emily shelves $17,000, Samantha shelves $14,000,
and I'm
Aaron
like, you can't even buy like that's less than what a new Mustang costs. Like let's go.
Yeah, where can I get this?
Yeah,
but that was so. And then here's
you have to
the
raise these
oddest part.
kids for 6 years before you can sell them.
Here's the weirdest part of the whole thing is the fact that the media won't touch it. And I don't even mean the media going, wow, they're being sold on Wayfair. Just go like, hey, this has been making the rounds, the Wayfair thing. Send a journalist out. Let's investigate it. See what it's all about. And then go on and say, hey, we checked this out. It turns out to be a hoax, or they go, oh my God, there's children being sold. But they don't even touch this shit. Pizzagate was the same thing. Pizza, I want pizza. We love pizza. I have pizza on my chest. A fucking pizza's fucking at my house tonight. It was so weird, these things. But no one looked into it. Even to say that, hey, it's fake.
It might be that you can't sell ads on your expose into child slavery porn rings. Like even making fun of the Wayfair one. I don't know if like CBS could run JAG ads right after their expose on. So we looked into this goofy child rape thing.
Good point, but it doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean it is true. I get that. But it doesn't mean it's not true just because they won't fucking cover it because of, a sponsor not wanting that kind of material on. But you would think a real journalist, a Woodward and Bernstein kind of motherfucker would want to go out and go, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to look deep and see what the fuck this is about because it's just too odd of a thing. And I'll come back and sit down and go, here's our story on the Wayfair thing. It's all bullshit. We looked into it and a hacker did this or that. But to just leave it and go, we're not even going to look at it is a weird fucking thing.
I agree with you. It is weird.
I'm looking at it. People, I think it's getting debunked. I don't know. This one thing I found on WUSA 9.
It's getting debunked by Wayfair. I love that.
No.
When they go, well, that's been debunked by who? Joe Biden.
So
it was about.
So what they say is some things are impossible to debunk, right? Like it's just impossible to see that this existed or didn't exist.
Yeah.
But other stuff is verifiably debunked. Like they're like, hey, this pillow was $10,000 and his name was Samantha, so it's this girl. Well, it turns out that girl was found 6 years ago. So they're not selling her. And then there's case after case after case. This one, I forget what the name of it was, but some other little girl's name. And they're like, that girl was actually only missing for 1 month. She was found right away.
Only a month?
Well,
she's sorry, we put the ad in. She got away.
So that was but it was a while ago. They act like they're these kids are missing, but is not there. And
But why are they even named after these?
and why is there a $10,000 pillow? Like, what is the
Yeah,
explanation for that?
like all of it. That's what I mean. Just at least look into it and say there's something fucking weird here.
Yeah, this is the kind of shit that like.
Can I just do a little longer? So Wayfair, I guess, debunk some of it. I know. But they call out that Wayfair didn't address the seemingly strange high price points. And I'd like them to. I'd like them to explain why they have $10,000 pillows.
Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. I looked up, I look at some expensive stuff occasionally. I was looking at what Jorge Masvidal's fucking robe costs. Like $600. It's not $10,000 fucking dollars.
I was trying to buy one of Mannix's jackets from the Mannix TV show back in the 70s. $1,200.
Yeah. 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 I've done the same thing. I can't remember the name of the website where you can buy those movie props, but I really wanted from the first Alien movie. I wanted one of those Nostromo jackets that they wore.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
like
awesome.
It was a little expensive. I didn't buy it, and but still, like nobody's selling $12,000 pillows. I don't care. There's no brand in the world that does that.
No.
Like there's
Yes, there is. They're made right here in my home state of Minnesota.
I think
they're machine worshipable and dryable.
I live in the Baja.
You know that I was a Navy SEAL.
I've heard
a
that.
Navy SEAL, a
I've heard that
fighter,
about you.
I was a fighter.
governor.
I was a governor. And damn it, I can't fucking compete with Anthony's.
Why won't they let me onto Plum Island?
You even did your face a little bit like
Dude,
it.
and he goes, yeah, he's all
that little mannerism. I love that one.
I'm just a governor looking for answers.
He's like Nixon's buff nephew or something. That guy's such a goofball.
Oh yeah.
Dude, but
for the Wayfair thing, I think it's like Amazon uses high prices instead of making things go out of stock, so they don't lose, like for a number of catalog reasons, they don't lose the URL. Like if Google knocks it out of the index or stuff like that. Usually, it's an algorithm gone wrong if it has one item left and a $10,000 pillow.
See,
that's what I've seen. Yeah, easy for them to explain too.
That's never happened on Amazon once.
It has.
Yeah, that's on Amazon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's happened on Amazon because the ASN gets compromised and they have to maintain their spot with the algorithm of Amazon. But it does not explain why they haven't addressed the prices and they haven't addressed the fact that these names are on there.
Yeah, why put the names on?
Why is there a Samantha cabinet? Why is there an Emily cabinet? Why is there a Cassandra cabinet?
Frankly, it seems like this is shit you would handle on the dark web anyway, not on like an open website where anybody can go to it.
Hiding in plain sight, my friend.
Also, the reason is because Breaking Bad, everybody wants more Breaking Bad, so now they want to find it on their own. Like that whole Los Pollos Hermanos and Madrigal and a giant global corporation doing illicit shit. Yeah. Like now they're like, oh, Breaking Bad did it, so I think Wayfair's. I'm pretty sure they're doing it too. Everybody's doing it. McDonald's is selling crack in their Happy Meals. I know it. If you burn the box and then you can freebase the ashes of a Happy Meal toy and get high on it. I know it. That's true.
I think as long as people are distracted by shit that is absolute bullshit, they won't report it as bullshit. So people just keep going at it. It gets that many people out of the way of the real shit that's going on. So you can even make the conspiracy that they don't want people poking around the real shit. So let them bite on this Wayfair thing for a while. Fuck it. It might keep them out of the COVID shit. So who the fuck knows?
I definitely think you're right there in that a lot of the conspiracy community, from what I've found out from just doing independent looking into it, plus what we do here where we joke around about them, real conspiracies fucking exist. Like if you don't think that groups of powerful people conspire together in order to achieve a given goal, you're a fucking retard and there's no saving you. Like obviously they do. We see that all the time that's why they had to fix price fixing with companies because of shit like that, because they conspire. And so obviously this shit happens. It's just a matter of which ones are actually slipping through the goalie and that are real, and which ones are the nonsense that we're supposed to latch onto.
So you think there's intentional red herrings? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. It seems like something. Why wouldn't you do that?
Out there in order to discredit any kind of conspiracy, because you even know Woody, Kyle, Dick, Ant, like you all know, when something is labeled a conspiracy theory, you have an inherent bit of distrust, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're like, come on.
Yeah, that's what powerful people would prefer, right? To muddy the waters with a bunch of nonsense so that you can't actually discern what's actually happening. Like that's
yeah. I mean, that was the whole genesis of us doing the like conspiracy theories on here. It was like finding some that we legitimately think have some truth to them, while at the same time being kind of silly.
It's totally different. But have you ever been like researching a conspiracy or something wild for a video, and you're like, after a few hours, days, whatever, you're like, oh, this is getting a little too real and wild. Not this one. Let's find a different one.
Yes,
What are some examples of that? If you
so the one that really like did me in was I went really down all the Epstein stuff when that happened.
Yes, yeah.
And this was before like I did the YouTube stuff. I was just like, is it really that bad? And then I remember like getting legitimately depressed. I got so into that. I got so into looking where money was going. I got so into who owned these places, who like went where. I just got depressed because I'm like, man, it really is everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that it was like people joke about like, oh, the black pill. I remember being like, wow, everyone is evil everywhere. That is so sad. I remember like having to step away from that and just kind of take a moment to like reevaluate myself.
Yeah.
But like I've come to peace with it now. Of like, you know, my worth isn't reliant on those who have greater faculty or power above me or whatever. But man, I tell you what, that was sad. That would be the big one. There's been some other minor ones that I've like sort of like dabbled in that I'm like, I don't know how much more of this I want to find out about. One of them was the Benghazi stuff. I got really into that more recently, like in the past year. And I remember researching that and being like, this is depressing.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I don't come up with the stuff like, aha, everyone who's in charge of us is evil people, whatever, and be like, I figured it out. It's just like, well, dang it.
You're just telling it like it was.
Yeah, pretty much like, man, whatever.
You're just I didn't know there were this many pedophiles.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go walk in the woods now. So.
That is funny, like how the Epstein
water
thing.
real quick. I'll be right
like
back.
When it first came out, people were like, right. So there's just a bunch of pedophiles in positions of power all over the world. And then you look into it and it's like, wow, there are pedophiles in positions of power all over the world.
No, I heard that was used to control each other. It was like that it was I mean, you would probably have heard this at some point or something, but it was used as a means to control each other. Like you are in the circle of trust because we have all committed this heinous, disgusting act. And so it is used as a means of controlling each other and committing to the team because you're all disgusting people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mutual blackmail.
We had a similar
it's like if we go down, you're coming with us. So you better do what we say.
I remember where I live in Tennessee now, but I'm originally from like Eastern Kentucky, like in the coal country of it. And there's a lot of gangs around, like before my time mainly, but like during my dad's time and all that, the gangs or the Mountain Mafia, as they were called, were real popular whenever they were breaking up picket lines and there were shootouts everywhere. And part of the deal was whenever there were new initiates, they did a lot of stuff like blew up bridges, blew up coal trucks, stuff like that. If they were to ever like shoot something or blow it up, they would find some way for everyone's hand to be on it. Like if you show up, you are going to shoot the vehicle or you're going to have some part in place in it because the first time you have to be like mutual blackmail and that just scales up. So like for a bunch of guys in the mountain, it's shooting up a coal truck. For like, you know, Hillary Clinton, it's eating a baby. It's just a natural.
Yeah, it's wild. It's the world is like I'm not nearly as into
weird
it as you,
timeline,
but like it gets depressing when you like look into some stuff where it's like, oh man, people are genuinely very cruel to one another, and that makes me sad.
I remember I used to be like in high school, I was I think I got like most likely to be president, some superlative, and I was on a bunch of debate teams and stuff like that. And I was like really into politics, and then that happened, and I just like I was like, I'd never want to look at someone in a suit ever again. Like it really did poison me to a point of bitterness for a while. Like I said, I'm better now. But yeah, you asked like what was the one that hit too deep? That one really hit too deep. Yeah,
it makes sense. That's a good answer. I was expecting something like that, like where you just get it's like you stare too long into the abyss and it begins to stare back into you. You spend all this time obsessing about and reading about something that is horrific, and then you start to be like, man, little bits of my soul are like flaking off as I'm reading this. Like I'm becoming actively more cynical by
there's
by
also this like not just with that specifically, but with a lot of like grander conspiracy, like stuff like the MLK assassination or JFK or whatever. There's this sense of hopelessness or like just inability of action. Like, oh, what am I going to do? Catch these guys? Or no matter how many people I tell, it's not going to get better, right?
Yeah.
And that leads to a sort of, I guess it can lead to nihilism if someone sits in it for too long. But like I said, it's just got to be something that you kind of recognize. It doesn't define you just because it's happening and you can't do anything about it. You're not your inactions. But yeah, I had an entire soul searching thing over the Epstein stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Are you still like following any of the Ghislaine stuff as that was going on?
Yeah. I've got my own theories about all that. I don't. It's kind of like a train wreck, but the train wreck's halfway done. Like, you know, like the front car hit and everything crashed, and it's not like, well, I hope the back of the train will stop doing that. No, it's just going to keep piling up over and over. I kept up with it, but not as much as I did originally, because like I said, you can't, or at least I can't, super invest my time. Like, man, I hope justice is served, because I know the answer, and it's just going to make me sad again.
Yeah, it's not going to be served. And it's funny. Like at first, like so many people are like, "Oh, this isn't happening. There's no pedophile island." And then now, like some of those same people are like, "We got him. The two people on Earth who were doing this, we got them. Don't worry, guys. This was a one-off. It's never going to happen again. It's certainly not happening with other individuals as we speak right now. We got them, everyone. Mission accomplished." It's like, it's like I don't know. Yeah, it's literally like Bush on that fucking destroyer.
Two people. Yeah.
Well, that thing we said was a conspiracy lie for years was true. Thankfully, the only two individuals globally involved in this have been caught. One of them killing himself when a camera misfired and a bunch of people who didn't work there found their way into his fucking cell.
What if that's the way they said he died? That the camera that was recording him exploded and killed him.
That'd be a little bit more obvious.
He was electrocuted by the camera. Oh, do we have that on film? Well, think about that one. Why are you asking tough questions? All right.
The conspiracy would be a little more obvious.
He was a terrible person at hanging himself. Hanging himself and bruising and breaking that many ribs. Like,
I mean, what, had he never done it before?
Well, the guy who ended up doing it, at least according to McAfee, before he also CO'd himself.
Okay.
That guy was a.
Well, hold on. I got an okay from Kyle. Go ahead. What was that?
Well, I mean, all right, McAfee was
he was on the show, on our show.
No.
He's a goof.
I didn't know that he was on the show. That's interesting. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that he was murdered. I do think that he did commit suicide.
He did.
Being sarcastic. I wasn't being sarcastic on that one. I literally meant he did CO himself.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the guy that McAfee tweeted and was like, "This is the guy in the jail," which he was right. The dude who was a former cop in New York was the one who was. You remember how Epstein was like almost strangled a week before he died?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that guy did get like moved and separated and all that, but then they kept him in the same jail and like on the same cell block or whatever. And he was a couple cells down whenever the cameras went out. Mm-hmm. And like the room that Epstein died in was previously that guy's room. So it's like, oh, of course it's going to have DNA and fingerprints and, you know, blood and whatever all over the place. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole, stuff like that. It really, it hurt a lot. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Kyle, are you okay? You look.
Do you have anything to weigh in on it, Filthy?
No. I have no idea. No knowledge of any of the facts of that. So
that didn't stop me.
What'd you do, Taylor?
Well, mine has something to do with gas as well, except it's in the modern day. So mine is about Bashar al-Assad, who is the leader of Syria, the elected leader of Syria. And the reason that it jumped out to me is we all know how divisive the media is and how much like Fox and MSNBC hate each other. Like, it's rare that a story will break and that everyone will be on the same page. Without fail, every single time Syria comes up, people on the left, or rather news sources on the left, news sources on the right, they all are like hinting at the idea that we need to get more involved in Syria. We need to have more troops over there. It's not so much a yes versus no. It's a to what extent, conversation of, do we need this many or this many? Who knows? But we definitely need a lot of people over there. And the reason it seems odd is you have to look at the timing and know the context of what's going on over there. So basically in Syria, there's a civil war going on between Assad's forces, the forces of Syria, and the quote-unquote moderate rebels that the U.S. and Israel and Western powers pump up with those brand new Toyotas and guns and pallets of money to allow them the ability to fight back semi-effectively against Assad's pro-army forces. And so this has been going on for a while. And these quote-unquote moderate rebels, which are not moderate at all, we call them moderate rebels because it sounds more palatable in the media. These are Wahhabi Muslims, and those are the actual, like, Wahhabi Muslims are the ones that regular Muslims are like, no, thank you. Like, they're the extremist, cut your fingers off, shoot you in a line, like basically just an angry dog that can be wielded by a stronger power and turned against.
They're the Mormons.
The Mormons, sure. And every time the Civil War now, and for years, has been going back and forth, but it's always been on the Assad's side for the most part. He's winning against these moderate rebels. And every time the war starts to turn down, it happened under Obama, happened under Trump, they're like, oh, there's a gas attack. And they go, well, the line has been crossed. We got to send more troops there. We got to lay the hammer down. And my contention is that the reason that these gas attacks happen at these specific times is because they know that the moderate rebels are losing to Assad. They want to destroy Assad and have a power replacement there. And so they need any excuse at all to get the U.S. or Israeli or any real military's air force, because Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they don't have air forces. They're going to get trounced by real air forces. And so the U.S., these Western powers, want to be able to go in, do some real fucking damage to Assad's army, and then back off and let these moderate rebels go in and create havoc and destroy this place. And what people don't know is, Assad is popular with his people. And he's even among, they paint him as this like crazy madman, which Woody and I on the show, we talked about it before. This previously rational actor who did things in their self-interest. Well, they're doing this now. He's gassing his own people when he's winning the Civil War. Well, it's just madman. Don't look any further into it. Madman. Don't think about it. We got to do this. But every time the tide starts to turn, a gas attack or something like that happens in a totally non-strategic way, and they use that as rationale to funnel more money, more arms, more trucks to these moderate rebels to fight against Assad. In addition to that, you have to think about the context of the war and what Assad would have to gain from these gas attacks. So Assad is winning. What does a guy who's winning, who is popular with his people, and this most recent gas attack was during an EU inspection. The EU was there to confirm that he didn't have any more gas. And as they were there, they go, gas attack, 70 people died over here. Was it a strategic area that he needed to hold? Was it something that there was any incentive whatsoever to do? Was Assad going, man, this civil war is going so well, I'm going to take on the U.S. Yeah, I'm going to take on the U.S. and Israel, two of the most powerful militaries in the world. I'm going to take them on. Like, no, there's no incentive for him to do that at all. Even the way that they cover it, you can tell that it's partially BS. You have the white helmets that you hear about, which are really just the PR, front-facing arm of Al-Qaeda. They're not the good guys. Those white helmets, there are footage of them, cleaning up the wreckage of this gas attack, and you see all these bodies laying out that were apparently just, in the process of being killed by gas. Some people are dead, some people are still twitching, and they're walking around in their white helmets with, like, T-shirts and shorts on, touching these people, like moving them, picking them up. You know what you don't do when there's a gas attack is you don't gallivant in there with your shorts on and start touching things. You don't do that. You're going to die. Like gas isn't like movies where it's like, oh, is that last wisp of smoke out of the air? Oh, okay, I'm fine. No, that's lingering. That's there. You walk into that area way later, you're going to be in some serious shit. And so these I think it's false flag of Western powers, namely the US and Israel, who think that it is greatly advantageous to them to destabilize the Middle East and make themselves a stronger presence. And over and over and over and over, you see that it just doesn't add up. It does not make any sense at all for Assad to be doing what he does over there. He is not this, and even then, like, it's not even pumping up Assad like he's some great dude, but he's way better than those moderate rebels who the people who live in Syria are fucking terrified of. The people in those cities are normal. They're not Wahhabi Muslims. Those Wahhabi Muslims hate those Muslims just as much as they want to kill the Christians. You know, Assad protects the minorities in these cities for the most part. He uses his army to make sure that they can't go in and start slaughtering the minority Christians or the normal Muslims. So that one really jumped out to me. And the more I read about it, unlike Kyle, I actually do think this makes a lot of sense. And I looked at like a lot of different news sites, and I started to notice the pattern of no critical analysis. It's a foregone conclusion that it is Assad. A gas attack, it's Assad. Well, how do you know? Because there's footage right here of ISIS soldiers with gas cans that have Turkish lettering on it that they somehow came across. Like it's not. It's clearly fucking these moderate rebels realizing, oh man, we're losing, and if we give that quote red line excuse to the Western powers of U.S. and Israel, then we're going to get more supplies. We're going to have a much better shot at winning this thing. And so it just does not add up one bit, the way that the media covers it and the rationale of Assad to do these atrocities.
It's also interesting that Iran is, of course, bordered with Russia. One more, and Assad is allied with Putin. So this gives us even more reason to knock him out and put our own puppet in, eh?
Yeah, well, from that point of view, yes.
Yeah, I buy into that. So I wouldn't think that the U.S. would have dirty hands in that, but I could definitely see us being complicit in it, allowing it to happen,
that's why we fuel the moderate rebels. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's known.
Oh no, we do. Yes, of course. I've seen this graph that shows all of the groups that are fighting in Syria and how each of them are allied amongst one another, and it's a literal spider web diagram where there are curved lines connecting all of the groups, and this group is opposed to this group, and this group is allied with that group, and like it's absurd.
It's so complicated. It's almost impossible.
Because the Saudis are there as well. The Saudis are the Saudis have people there. There are mercenaries from all around the fucking globe there that are representing a dozen different countries and groups of countries. Right? It's a very complicated
and you have to remember, these are the same people who told us there were WMDs in Iraq confirmed. These are the same people who told you, oh yeah, anthrax, that's all coming from Iraq. That's where it's coming from. They've got like factories and shit there. So it's not like there's not a precedent to lay this on. You know, there is a pattern of lying to the people, lying and implying, and seizing that foregone conclusion thing. Because if every mainstream media outlet is agreeing that it's Assad, most people are going to go, must be. They're not going to look into it and see, wait, what? He's winning this war handily and he gasses his own people, but he's still popular with them for the most part. Like it doesn't add up. Like in this most recent one, it happened so soon after Trump had his speech or whatever, where he's like, we're going to get out of Syria as soon as we can. We're getting out of there. And then lo and behold, a little gas attack that doesn't make any tactical sense happens to try and, make sure that that's not a possibility. It does not add up.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I'll co-sign with that.
There it is.
Aha! I won. Yeah. All right. I'm excited for Woody's. Woody has a PowerPoint for us.
Yeah.
By the way, it's fucking hilarious to me that you did this. I love it. I love it.
I kind of cheated because mine's not so much a conspiracy theory as much as a simple observable fact. It's a piece of cake to prove. So United Flight 93, that's the plane that was shot down in Pennsylvania on 9/11. I'm gonna go through that and explain how I know that it was shot down. First, we're gonna go through the timeline. What's important to note on slide 2 here is the times. The World Trade Center went down an hour and 15 minutes before this flight did. There was lots of actionable time. The second one went down an hour or half an hour before this plane was shot down. There were 31 minutes before this thing was known to be a problem plane and the time that it was finally shot down. On slide 3, George Bush in his memoirs included that he gave the order to shoot down this plane. He actually thought that, well, in his book.
Did he really? I've never heard this.
Yeah, and it's in his memoirs. He says, I gave the order to shoot down this plane, and I was under the impression for quite some time that it was us who shot down this plane, which to me is the cover for changing his story, right? You know, like, it turns out it just crashed on its own. Bullshit. Next slide. The F-16s were there. As I mentioned, 31 minutes had passed. Well, the F-16s were only 10 minutes away from this flight. At supersonic speeds, it was less than 10 minutes. There was enough time to go there, to try radio contact, to give it a go. There were 21 minutes after the planes arrived to deal with this, to make a decision on whether they shoot it or not. Cleveland air traffic controllers were on the record saying that the F-16s and Flight 93 were there together in the same spot. And then they became forbidden to talk about what was on their radar screens. That's it. Ooh. They just don't talk about that anymore. It's done. And there are eyewitnesses that see the F-16s right by Flight 93. Next slide. The engines on Flight 93 landed over 2,000 feet from the crash site of the rest of the plane. That's half a mile. Now, when planes come drilling into the ground, the debris tends to be very localized. It's in one spot. The engines don't go another half a mile away if they hit the ground first. And wait till you see this engine record. Next slide. Wreckage. There is a giant hole that this engine created as it came pummeling into the earth. Next slide. Here's a close-up of the engine buried into the dirt. Like, what is that? 4 feet deep? Look at
this. So it clearly fell from a distance.
The entire engine is underground.
It like burrowed a hole. This is not a motor that slid across the ground half a mile and then somehow dug a 4 foot deep hole. That's not how this works. Next slide. They found mail. So Flight 93, like a lot of flights, had U.S. postage on it. They found this mail 10 miles from the crash site, just scattered throughout the woods everywhere. The official explanation for this mail is that the wind blew it. The wind was going 8 miles an hour that day, which means that these letters would have had to have been airborne for over an hour across the ground through the woods. What kind of horseshit is that, right? That's not what mail does. If you dropped a letter in your front yard with 8 mile an hour wind, it wouldn't stay airborne for the next hour and 15 minutes and find itself 10 miles away. It would drop at your feet. Unless there was a hole blown in the plane from 5,000, 8,000 feet in the sky. And then the mail scattered across a 10-mile crash site, because that's what letters would do. Last slide. In summary, the order to shoot this plane down was given by W. The F-16s were in the area with more than enough time to get it done. And the crash site debris is consistent with an air-to-air missile strike.
The only other possibility is that the plane broke up in the air due to the pilot, the passengers attempting to take control, grabbing controls, and then making it do some sort of maneuver. Because the plane definitely has to break up in the air to accomplish all of these things.
So you think the passengers flew the plane in such a way that the engine flew off?
I don't know much about planes, but but it sounds like the plane broke up in the air due to something. It definitely did.
I choose to believe Woody.
It's hard to go with any other conclusion on this. You know, the crash site is consistent with an air-to-air missile strike.
Did they know if the Flight 93 passengers ever made it into the cockpit or did anything like that? Or that's just totally unknown now? Because I know they recovered some calls. Well, not in the film.
Yeah, there was more stuff I didn't include in here. The passengers did make a run, but they don't know that the passengers actually got in the cockpit. They also have a guy who was on the phone in the bathroom when the missile struck the plane. And he's describing the bang he heard. And, you know, they don't really lay that out there.
Wait, what was that?
So there was a guy hiding in a bathroom because terrorists had taken over the plane. And while he's there talking to somebody on the phone, the missile strikes the plane and you can hear the bang. And he's like, I don't know what that was. And then it goes down.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility that the terrorists had a bomb with them? Which it does seem kind of redundant because they were using the plane as the bomb.
Yeah. Why would? Okay, so maybe when the passengers were imminently taking control of the plane, it was happening, and then they set off an explosive device. That could also be an explanation, I suppose.
Yeah.
that
Although
could be too.
it just, what is it? Occam's razor, where the most reasonable solution is
The
the one
simplest,
that,
yes.
I don't see why terrorists would bring a bomb when they're trying to use the plane as a missile.
Last resort potentially, but I agree with you.
It also is-
Your explanation is the most likely.
And that alternative explanation is much trickier to slip past TSA than just some box cutters.
Sure. Yeah. I think that it was shot down. I agree with you. I've always thought that, honestly, but based solely on the debris field, it was so scattered. And you know, you don't have to be an expert to like understand that if a plane hits the ground, then it's all right there where it hits the ground, not
The
spread
engine
out.
doesn't burrow itself in the ground a half mile from the site unless that
Yeah.
engine came apart in the air.
Yeah, it has to break up midair. And I don't recall what kind of planes that they were, but have you ever seen the footage of that pilot flying? I think it was a 747, and he does a fucking what do you call it? Not a barrel roll. He does like a loop-de-loop, like
Yeah, I
let me
forget what
find
that's
it.
called.
But like now that I picture that, I'm like, no, it doesn't matter what the fucking they did up there. You can't make that plane break. You can't fly it bad enough to break it.
Yeah, don't take this right too hard. We might just come apart. I don't think that that's like maybe how like Ryanair works, but not not United
Spirit
93.
Airlines.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I can't believe I'd never looked into Flight 93 at all. I've never even seen the film. It would be funny in the film if somebody edited in like a fighter jet like in the corner that nobody saw, and that just like then sunk back like.
Yeah, the stuff about like air traffic control not being allowed to talk about what they saw on their radar. What's that about?
That always inches me a bit towards the conspiratorial side, is when people are instructed that they can't talk about it. You know, where it's like, hey, you can't talk about what happened there and what you saw on your screen. We're not trying to hide anything, but you can't talk about it. And the explanation would probably be like, oh, there was probably some like, classified high-tech shit. It's like, no, do you think every other day they were like, yeah, fellow, air traffic controllers of Cleveland, remember to zip it up before you hit the bars tonight? Like, no, there's nothing. They're just organizing traffic in the air. It's not a conspiracy, heavy job, I wouldn't think.